Hello, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to OC Open for Biz. I'm Matthew Evilsizor. I own Pro Presence, and I am proud to be your master of ceremonies for today. So, we have a really robust lineup of Orange County and Southern California business voices that we believe will motivate and articulate the opportunities present in their respective industries across a wide range of business segments. So, why are we doing this? Um, if you haven't noticed, 2020 has been a really volatile year for all of us. There have been major changes in our community, in our culture, and in our mindset. And these rapid shifts can leave us feeling vulnerable and making it hard to know what to do next and ultimately how to rise. So it was with that in mind that we put this event together because, at least for myself, and I believe the rest of my team, we genuinely believe that it is only when we truly come together that positive impact can be created and sustained. So thank you so much for joining with us. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to our speakers. And again, thank you to you for being part of that, for being part of joining together and helping us be that change both for yourself, for your career, and for our community as a whole. So it's going to be a really great event. Grab some snacks, get some water, chill out, and let's get this going. All right. So first things first, I would like to give some shout outs to our sponsors. We have some really great sponsors that have made this possible. First and foremost, OC Engine. OC Engine is an online crowdsourced community event calendar that makes it easy to find, participate, and network with great local talent. Visit ocengine.com to give it a try and find other awesome events just like this one. Learning Fuse. If you've been thinking about leveling up your career, Learning Fuse Coding Academy is the route for you. Learning Fuse offers Module 1 and UX design in part time classes that are built to give you the foundation for a new career. Learn more at learningfuse.com. I also would really like to thank Learning Fuse for their generous donation. They have actually offered 10 free 2 week prep classes to participants of this OC Open for Biz event. So TJ will be in touch with the winners, and all you had to do is be part. So you're already in the running. Good for you. All right. Hassan Archer Consulting. Hassan is an empathetic technology leader who combines the best practices of software engineering and behavioral psychology to help executives identify challenges, create action plans, and optimize their business to run faster. Learn more at hassanarcher.com. SEO EQ, search engine optimization that gets to the heart of your customer's search intent. With comprehensive competitive analysis and technical SEO strategies to effectively position your products and services exactly where your customers are looking for them. Drive more traffic to your site with SEO-EQ.com. And I also would like to thank VitalLink. VitalLink is a nonprofit organization dedicated to preparing students for their future careers through experiential learning opportunities. Introducing students to the world of robotics, design and performance engineering, computer programming, medical careers, and much more. Learn more at vitallinkoc.org. And finally, ProPresence. If your presence isn't impactful, your absence won't make a difference. With customized one-on-one, live, and online training sessions, ProPresence turns public speakers into compelling communicators. Create confidence in your presentations, sales calls, video meetings, networking events, and investor pitches. Learn more at pro-presence.com. ProPresence, be compelling, be you, shine. All right, and now I would like to thank our key sponsor, who is the California Community College System. And the head of that, who will be giving us a little brief as well, is Kathleen Grainer. Now, Dr. Kathleen Grainer, PhD, is the Department Sector Navigator for Business and Entrepreneurship in Orange County. As a strategic long-range partner with Entrepreneurial Spirit, Dr. Grainer is a sought-after expert on how to prepare students and individuals for academic and workplace success. She is a facilitator, a faculty member for the Western Association of College and University Business Officers, and has a proven career in higher education and in the community college system as a teacher, dean, and vice president. She has expertise in online learning, leadership, and networking with critical community partners to respond to changing leaders' needs and learning needs, working tirelessly to build enduring bridges between business and education. So, without further ado, I would like to invite Kathleen to take it away. Thank you, Kathleen.
Great, thank you very much. I'm just pulling up my screen here and hitting the share button. Okay.
I'm always trying to read people's books in the background, like what books do they have? Always trying to get a closer look. Awesome, thank you.
Okay, great. I'll pull up my little PowerPoint here. And there it is. I'm sharing screen. Welcome, everybody. I do want to make sure that we're reaching out to a large community. I hope my screen is in the share mode there.
Yep, I think you're good.
Okay, great. And again, joining Matt in welcoming everybody. I'm going to start off with a quick quote here from Peter Drucker. The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence itself, but to act with yesterday's logic. That provides an opportunity for us to focus on discovering and learning, which is what OC Open for Biz is all about, is pivoting from where we were before to a future that's certainly coming to us in no uncertain terms. Areas that we're focusing on the colleges and with the partners that are on the screen and all of you as participants today is an emphasis on collaboration and employment. The community college system here in Orange County has some 9 colleges with about 300,000 students, emphasizing 6 economic sectors, including business and entrepreneurship, with goals to connect and bridge between education and employers, allowing businesses, students returning to the workforce, people needing to upgrade their skills in preparation for a new economic ecosystem to quickly be able to access their new skills and opportunities. Some of those skills, we might call them employability skills, are noted here on the screen. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they certainly, from adaptability to digital fluency, have come in handy over the last 4 months, and quite frankly are going to be critical skills as we face the forces in front of us as we and develop a new economic ecosystem. Next steps will be trying to sustain what we're starting today, scale up to meet the needs and demands of employers and employees here in the Orange County, and emphasize once again that connection between the jobs we have and employability skills, and continue to communicate that sense of a real connection that we're developing through OC Engine and OC Open for Biz. That's it for me. Again, thanks to all of you. As we know, not every student will have to be an entrepreneur in the future, but we all have to think like one. So thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of the seminar, and happy to be part of this great endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Super insightful, and thank you for being a part of this event. It's great that we can all do this together. Okay, so first and foremost, we are going to start off with a section from a very young entrepreneur, and I think this is going to get people motivated. I would like to introduce Tristen Tucker, who will be doing the presentation announcement. Tristen is an organizer for 1 Million Cups Irvine, one of our sponsoring organizations. Now, Tristen has the pleasure of interacting with a wide variety of emerging businesses in our local startup ecosystem. Tristen is a presentation and communication consultant who works with both individuals and businesses to sharpen their messaging and improve the communication of that message. During the pandemic shutdown, Tristen has increased her knowledge of online presentation skills and learned how to bake a great loaf of sourdough. As a lover of sourdough, Tristen, I would like to get one of those. I want to buy a loaf. Let's start some commerce right now.
We'll get you hooked up.
Awesome.
So I believe that we are going to our first presenter, which is Nitin Parsarathi from Zero Waste Initiative. I had the pleasure of meeting Nitin not that long ago when he presented at 1 Million Cups with his nonprofit Zero Waste Initiative. To begin with, this particular nonprofit is impressive because it was started just before the lockdown for COVID-19. In February, Nathan started this project in order to help get food that would otherwise be wasted to people in need. And then he had to figure out how to do it during a lockdown. But perhaps even more impressive is that for the last few months, Nathan has been figuring all this out while attending his high school classes. So, Nathan, I believe you can go ahead and flip on your camera.
Thank you, Tristen.
And we will go ahead and turn it over to you, Nathan. Please take it away.
All right. So hi, I'm Nathan. I'm the current president and the founder of the Zero Waste Initiative. The mission of my initiative is to reduce food waste, to reduce food insecurity, and support environmental sustainability as a fringe benefit. The idea all started when I was eating at a Burger's Bagels. There, I asked for a skinny bagel, which is when they cut off the top and bottom. When I saw them throw away the scraps left after they cut off, I was shocked. I thought that they were going to go reuse it somewhere, but they were actually just going to trash it. And as someone where my parents always told me to not waste my food, and if I brought home food from school, I had to finish it right away, that made me ashamed and absolutely shocked. So I asked what they would do with the bagels if they didn't sell them, and they mentioned they would throw those away as well. And I started thinking about ways we could not waste that food and also at the same time help people in need. And that led to what is now the Zero Waste Initiative. As I researched this problem, I came across 3 topics that I wanted to address: food insecurity, food waste, and sustainability. Regarding food insecurity, 40 million people face hunger every day in the world, and in America alone, 12% of households are food insecure. By reducing our food waste by just 15%, we could feed more than 25 people annually. And sustainability-wise, since only 5% of food is composted in the US, we could do so much more to reduce our food waste and help the environment. But on top of that, when we use our fresh water to create food such as crops and use it for production, 25% of all our freshwater consumption every year is wasted when we throw away that food. It's a huge problem, and we could do so much more to fix it. On top of that, we live in a brand new era with the COVID-19, the coronavirus. It has changed every aspect of society, and we have the highest unemployment rate since the Great Depression. On top of that, there's an extreme other side where there's so much more wasted food. Since farmers don't have a supply chain where they can deliver their food to stores and then they have to dump their crops, they have to dump their milk as well, they have to smash their eggs because they don't have the space, and they have to kill their livestock and not sell the meat. That's so much more wasted food. And there's 2 extremes now, and I was thinking there has to be a way to fix that. I did come across some challenges during COVID-19. So I had to come up with approval to pick up and distribute food to different nonprofit organizations, and on top of that, find the right stores who could donate their food waste. Because there was such a fear of the unknown caused by the pandemic, it took a lot of advocacy in order to get testimonials to prove my intent, and also to prove there was a minimal food handling from getting the food from the store to the organizations. There were still some stores who were hesitant to donate, but however, we have rescued over $10,000 value of food waste in just 2 months, served hundreds of people during this time, and we've only just started. Currently, we're partnered with 2 Burger's Bagels and 1 Dunkin' Donuts. We also had a temporary partnership with 2 Starbucks locations. This was to fill a gap caused by the pandemic. They were partnered with Food Share before the pandemic, but since their hours changed so drastically because of the quarantine, I stepped in to fill that gap and rescue their food in the meanwhile. Now they're back with Food Share, but I was happy to fill in that gap while they couldn't. On average, we pick up around 75 to 100 bagels per burgers every day, and we operate 7 days a week. And we also pick up 150 donuts per day. The organizations that take these donations are here, such as Human Options, Families Forwards, U-Turn Lives, and so much more. I was also partnered with Fresh Basic Needs Hub and OC Children's Therapeutic Arts before the pandemic, but they were closed temporarily and they're reopening soon. I take these bagels and donuts from the stores to the organizations right away and keep them fresh with minimal food handling. And I'm very thankful that they take the food. Here are some pictures of the Zero Waste in action. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my Director of Operations, Amita Ramanujan, for her tireless support and activity in the initiative. In the future, I hope to become 501c3 approved, so that when I go to stores, some stores like Panera Bread require a 501c3 in order for donations to be taken. But also I'm able to give volunteer hours to the volunteers who so tirelessly pick up food. I obviously also want to rescue more food and get more stores and more volunteers on board the initiative. On top of that, since as someone foreign the future, we realize that food is going to be wasted inevitably, especially fruits and veggies and they can be composted. I would like to give extra value to our donation partners and help them out with composting so that food waste doesn't end up in landfills. I also want to partner with other food share services and also schools in order to help the community even more. Food waste and food insecurity are real problems. I'd like to spread the awareness and would like more people to be involved in this initiative. I want to identify more stores and I want to rescue more foods and help more people with food insecurity. So if you're able to volunteer and are also able to connect me with more stores to partner with, I would greatly appreciate it. And you can email me at the email at the bottom or visit my website for more information. And please do follow us on all social handles on my website and spread the word. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Nithin. It has been so inspirational for me to hear your story. For everybody, we have approximately 5 minutes. I have a question or two for Nithin, but if I see something pop up in the chat window or if I see a hand raised from the participants tab, I'll try to get to those as well. So Nithin, to begin with, one of the things that was really interesting to me about Zero Waste Initiative is how it is that you want to grow. What types of organizations would be the most helpful for you to have contact to in order to get food donations?
So I like to be in contact with like local businesses, also chain stores that have these foods and they want to give back to community, but they don't have a way how. I also would also greatly appreciate more volunteers. With more stores, we obviously need more manpower to pick up from those stores. So that's one of the things that I want to do in the future with this initiative. And with organizations, I'd love if there's more organizations that are in need of more donations, because we get so much food. Like I mentioned, we get 150 to 200 bagels on average from each store. So it'd be great if we could get more stores because there's a lot of food to be spread.
Agreed. So that's two ways that you guys could help Nithin if you have the contacts to local businesses that have food overages and are looking for a way to utilize those effectively, but also just manpower, because like I said, Nithin is still in high school and does not have a driver's license yet. So transporting all that food can be kind of a challenge. We do have a question in the chat window from Erica Began, who says, thank you so much, Nithin, for sharing your initiative and how you adapted your goals and execution once the pandemic was systemic here in Southern California. So Nithin, do you have any comments about how the pandemic might have actually helped you focus in on what was needed?
So yeah, the pandemic helped focus on what was needed because for one, it's a lot more tight now. You had to have a lot more food safety measures, and I think that's great because obviously food needs to be safe. And I think that it also helps with set up a good schedule for picking up food, because now there's a lot more there's more regular hours now, and now they're closing a little bit earlier, so it becomes a little bit easier to pick up food.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. We have a question also from Arash Sayadi, who is wondering how many people you're currently able to help. So do you have a number of how many people in need you've been able to help?
I'm not able to get exact numbers, but I do know it's well over like 200. Each organization, like some of them serve like underprivileged people, some of them serve like women and children that don't have like homes to go to. So I'm not really able to get an exact number, but yeah. And we currently have 3 volunteers and their families that help come and support.
Oh, very cool. Well, Nathan, we have pretty much reached the end of our time. It has been such a pleasure working with you and having you here and hearing about your journey. And I very much am looking forward to hearing more about it as you continue along it. With that, I would like to turn things over to Hassan Archer, who is going to be introducing our next speaker. And Hassan, I do not have your introduction in front of me. I do apologize, but Hassan is awesome, and I'm sure that Matt will give him the appropriate introduction in a few minutes. Hassan?
Thank you so much, Tristen. Good afternoon, everyone. I am super duper excited to introduce our first keynote speaker for today, Kyle Wieger. Kyle is a fitness entrepreneur who single-handedly built a multiple 6-figure business selling a handstand course with nothing but a phone and a laptop. His passion is inspiring people to quit doing the same old thing and to pursue doing what they love. His habits are he's an early riser who likes early morning workouts, maintaining a sense of gratitude, journaling, and being relentlessly responsive to his customers, while also constantly trying to get a better understanding of his own reality. His motto is, if it's important, you'll make time. If it's not, you'll make excuses. So without further ado, we'll please introduce you to Kyle Wieger.
Thank you, Hassan. Super excited to be here and just really honored and humbled at the opportunity to kind of share my story. I have somewhat of an interesting story on how I got to where I am with this online handstand course and how it sort of reshaped my life. Let's flash back to January 2016, Denver, Colorado. Life was good. I had my sales and marketing job for a very cushy software company. Wasn't facing a ton of challenges. Everything just kind of seemed to be on cruise control. And I got a job offer from a former CEO of mine. And he said, hey, I got this new company and we are funded. We got $25 million from Bain Capital. We got an office in New York and we want to open one in California. Will you be the guy to open our California branch? And I sat with that for a while because I lived in Denver for so long, and this is like where my home is, my family, and like not blood family, but like my fam. And I decided, it's time for me to step out of this comfort zone and take a risk. Little did I know I would be taking a much bigger risk. In March of 2016, I got moved in to California, and something just wasn't smelling right with the company that had just hired me. And there was a couple bugs in the software that were questionable. And as it turns out, within 2 weeks of moving to California and signing a $2,700 a month lease on an apartment, they let me go. Not only did they let me go, they just flat out said, hey, we made a pretty big mistake and we're not even opening a California office at all. Sorry about that. So I was, as you might imagine, just absolutely devastated. The first instinct for me was to do the safe thing and call up my old boss. I could have got my job back. I could have broke the lease on the apartment, but something was like, no, man, there's like a golden opportunity in here. You have no income, which is scary when you live in, Orange County. It's not exactly the cheapest place to live in the whole world. But something brought you here. So just like, let's figure this out. Let's hurry up and figure it out. And so I panicked and I just went job hunting, right? Any director level sales position I could find for a software company. I was calling. I got an interview with an app company. And for the first time in my life, I interviewed for a job and I didn't get it. And that's when it just kind of hit me in the face that, dude, you have to be your own business. You have to start something that makes you happy. I've started businesses before in the past. I have a yoga site from like 2012. But I just knew that if I stayed in California and kind of stuck to the past, something would happen. So after about 3 days of kind of, feeling sorry for myself, I knew nothing was going to change unless I changed. And so I was the only one that was going to, dig myself out of this situation. It's not like someone was going to come knock on my door with some amazing job opportunity. So I knew one thing about my own like mental development, and that is when I surround myself with kind of positive thoughts and affirmations and books and audiobooks, is that I can change my energetic relationship with the universe. And so a good example of this happened shortly after I lost my job and was in a massive, like I said, panic. I threw on an audiobook called Becoming Magic by the pen name is Genevieve Davis. That's not her real name, but it was about an hour long, and I was going up to Santa Monica that day. And so I had about an hour long drive, and it was very strange, some of the stuff that she was saying in this book. And it's about how to kind of create your own reality, whether it's love or finance or business or happiness or whatever form of wealth you consider valuable. And I was cruising up to Santa Monica, and she talked about, the wanting versus having, and you got to be grateful for the things you have versus like pining for the things you want. Because when you get grateful for the things you have, that attracts more of that into your life. And when you are always thinking about things that you want, that just induces more of a state of wanting, AKA not having. And one of the lines in the book, and she said something to the effect of, no matter when the chips are down, no matter how dire your situation is, you need to always be looking on the positive. And the line that stuck with me was something to the effect of, let's say, even if your lover just left you, or let's say you took a big risk and moved across country for the big money job and it let you down. And I was like, wow, that's, kudos, hats off to you, spot on for the prediction. And so I got through the audiobook and I started doing all these affirmations. This was happening in my car as I was driving. And I have a yoga background and a fitness background. And I decided I'm going to make a run at this. I'm legit going to try to make it as a full-time yoga teacher in California. Parked my car in Santa Monica. I go to the beach and I'm like doing these affirmations as I walk into the beach. And I'm holding in my hand as I'm walking handstand canes. It's like a performance apparatus. And a girl comes up to me and she's like, hey, do you do handstands on those? And I was like, yeah, a little bit. She's like, oh, do you teach yoga? And I said, yeah, I do teach yoga. And she's like, that's so great. My mom owns a yoga studio and we're looking for more male instructors. And in my head, I was like, holy shit. Like in my car, like 5 minutes prior, was having this big emotional breakdown about like, I'm making my declaration to the universe. I am going to be a full-time yoga instructor in California. And this girl finds me at the beach. To take it one kind of meta layer, above, I said, all right, awesome. Let's chat sometime. But the thing is, I don't live here in Santa Monica. I live in Orange County. And she's like, oh, that's where our studios are. And I said, okay, that's super weird. So I explained to her like the whole episode I just had in my vehicle. And before I know it, she hands me a phone. Like, here. I was like, what are you doing? She's like, it's my mom. She wants to talk to you. So within 5 to 10 minutes of me like making this declaration to the universe that I'm going to create something for myself, I was being literally handed a phone with the owner of a yoga studio. So that was when it first hit me. I was like, okay, I can create my own reality. So I dove back into teaching. And then I started getting picked up, a studio in Orange County, Raw Yoga, if anyone goes there. And I really got focused on this thing about handstanding. It had always been an obsession of mine. And I met a couple of circus sort of level hand balancers that I started taking coaching from. And before too long, I was running like courses at Raw Yoga, and all the while savings account going down, amount of free time and fun though was going up. And I knew that wasn't exactly the most like financially responsible thing to do. But again, I was like, I'm back. I'm going to do this. I'm starting my own business, and it's going to be me, and I'm not going to be relying on anyone else. And then something pretty kind of strange had happened July of 2016, where I was subbing a class for my buddy Joey. I walk in and there's a woman there, and she says, hey, are you Kyle from Denver? And I was like, yeah, that's, have we met? And she's like, well, we never met. 4 years ago, I was visiting my sister in Denver. I live in Australia, and I took your class in Denver, and I happened to be in Orange County for the day. And I saw your name, and I wanted to come take your class. So we had like a little moment, right? And then after class, she says, hey, you know, I didn't want to like mess with your mojo or anything before class, but I own a studio down in Melbourne, Australia. Would you like to come teach at it? And I was like, wow, on the off chance I subbed a class. And then in the world of whatever you want to call it, law of attraction, synchronicity, say whatever it is, I follow a lot of Joe Dispenza, so I do believe that there is a energetic relation between the chemistry in my brain and the universe around me. And so I was like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. Meanwhile, again, savings account getting real close to zero, credit cards going up, because the math of trying to do full-time yoga teaching in Orange County, you would have to teach an almost impossible amount of classes. And so I went to Australia they paid for it, thankfully. And that's when things started to kind of take off. Like, okay, I can keep going with this whole like handstand teaching thing and make a career out of it. And then a year goes by and I'm just kind of grinding. I'm barely making ends meet. Like finances were rough, but I honestly loved the way I spent my time just training. And then I got the opportunity to go to Australia for a second time to go teach. And it was July of 2017. And as I was leaving, one of the students was like, hey, do you have like any online handstand courses? And I was like, Kyle, you idiot. How do you not have an online handstand course yet? So I got super motivated. I wrote the thing, I scripted the thing, I shot it, and then I had it ready to go by like November of 2017. And keep in mind, savings account going down, credit card debt going up, barely making ends meet, but I was determined to not get off of the path that I was on. I launched in November 2017, and anyone who's ever done a product launch knows the excitement around that. And it didn't go as planned, to say the least. I thought, okay, I have this course that's $175. If I'm gonna sell like 10 a day or like 100 this month or whatever it was. Upon launch, I sold 4. One of them was my mother. So 3 legitimate customers. However, it did show me like, okay, I can do this. There's something to this. I have an online course at kyleweger.com. And it's built, I have a product. Now I just got to figure out how to market it. So I had a little bit of money, not very much. And I ended up in Denver, Colorado to visit some friends, and I was teaching a workshop there. The workshop funds are what sort of like kept me afloat at that time. And I remember I was out to dinner with my best friend, and dinner and beer for which he had to pay for because I didn't have any money. And for the first time in my life, I cried over finances. I had always had jobs. I had always been like fairly successful in those jobs. I had never missed a car payment, which I had that month for the first time in my life. And I was like, man, I'm like 35 years old and I am struggling for cash. I just thought I would be somewhere so different. And we were, having our beer, kind of having a bestie moment. And he's a fairly well-to-do, he's a guy, he's in the coaching world. He's like got 150,000 YouTube subscribers. He's a well-known dude. And he probably could have at that moment bailed me out and, let me, 10, 20 grand just to whatever, keep me afloat for the next few months. But he turned to me and he's like, you're going to figure this out. And I was like, what makes you say that? And he's like, because you have to. Like you're missing car payments. Like this isn't like you. You're going to figure this out. And so at the end of 2017, I had like $200 in my savings account after I had got rent paid and all that stuff. And I took that $200 and I threw it at an Instagram ad that like right now I have a very complex funnel with, cart abandonment sequences and customer ascension journeys and all that. But back then my funnel was free video and then point them to the product. And so I threw this $200 at an ad for my free handstand video that would get people on my email list. And then lo and behold, some people bought my course. And then a few more people bought my course. And then January 1st hit, and that's a big day in the fitness world because that's when everyone has their resolutions. That is when, people get really motivated. And I remember going into my online banking, which is something I avoided like the plague, because when you're poor, you thinking about or talking about or looking at numbers. But I went to my online banking and I had like my business account had $2,000 in it, which was the most amount of money I had seen in my bank account for the last probably 18 months. And what I did is I took that 2K and I rolled that into a little bit more Facebook advertising. I started getting more sales, more advertising, more sales, more advertising. And what had happened then from the beginning of 2018 to where I am now is, I mean, it's absolutely life-changing. I have a multi-six-figure business that sells a handstand course. So if you're thinking of starting a business and you think your idea is too niche, I beg to differ. And by the way, I filmed the entire thing on an iPhone and this little tripod, this right here. Now, there was a lot of late nights staying up, trying to figure out what to do and how to structure my business, a lot of late nights in the studio crying. There was one time where I had filmed like 30 minutes of a segment of a 60-minute video with no sound on. And it was just frustrations kind of kept compounding and compounding. But again, I was like, stay the path. Don't get off of this. This is what you want to do. So I hate to say it, but force the issue. Like if you just keep doing this, it's going to pan out. And then once the course really started gaining traction, I remember thinking, you know, I want to sell like a few hundred courses, you know, a year that at least put some money in my pocket. And then I can go like, you know, figure out what I need to do next. As of like last month, we have surpassed 5,800, almost 6,000 people have purchased my online courses, all because I decided to take a talent of mine that I had and something I was super passionate about and never, ever deviate from that path. Any good entrepreneur out there has cut their teeth more than a few times and has had their fair share of heartbreak and inflection points where it would be incredibly easy to quit. And no one would even blame you, right? No one would even say, oh man, it's too bad it didn't work out. Yeah, business is hard. But to anyone who's crossed the chasm and gotten to the other side of that, they know that it's, when you're on the other side, it is totally worth it. Now, if I were to know in the beginning, like my naivety played into my success, because if I would have known in the beginning how long the path was going to be and how hard it was going to be and how much like stress or frustration I was going to have to go through before I experienced all this like joy, I probably would have never gotten started. And one thing that kept me going through the entire way as I flash back to that book, Becoming Magic, and that one like beautiful car ride up to Santa Monica. In that book, she talks a lot about journaling things you're grateful for. Now, when you're broke and stressed out for money, and your life isn't where you wanted it to be at this age, finding things to be grateful for, it's just easier to complain. Honestly, it's easier to say, oh, my life sucks and it's that company's fault. They screwed me. They put me in this situation. But what I chose was different. I every morning I would wake up and I woke up on the floor, by the way. One thing about me, I slept on the floor for about a year. I did the whole minimalist caveman thing. So when you wake up at age 35, 36 and you're sleeping on the floor and you have no money in your bank account, what can you be grateful for? So I made a practice of just being like, okay, you know what? I live in Orange County. It's one of the most beautiful places to live in the entire world. I got that. It's sunny every day. I live in a place where the rest of the country comes to vacation. And I just kept that attitude the entire time. And it ended up paying off that this like attitude of gratitude really built up sort of a gratitude savings account of energy in my body. And I was just able to unleash that out into the universe. And I feel like that played a big role in getting me to where I was. I now have a company called MemberDev, where we help entrepreneurs do what I did, right? We take their courses online. It's a platform where you can host it. So it spun itself into all of these different things. I have a handstand business that runs in the background. I hardly touch it. It makes me a good amount of money. And now I'm able to help other entrepreneurs with that experience and put their stuff on a platform as well. So I think I got about 4 or 5 minutes here left. I want to open it up to questions if there are any. And if there's anything you guys can take away from this, is get started and don't stop.
There are a few questions. We just got a question from Arash, and he said, Kyle, what can you do What do you consider the first step for people starting out with a new idea? What's the most important thing to do to keep you going as you're going through the hardships?
Write it down. Write down your, I did this actually, and this is a kind of another strange synchronicity story. I remember before I launched the course, I had recorded it and I wrote down, I want to teach X amount of studio classes a week. I want to do X amount of traveling gigs, and I want my course to sell this much, and da 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 da. And then a few years later, I moved over to the west side of town, and I was unpacking and I pulled out that journal, and I honestly like welled up because I had hit that. So I believe it's Arash, write it down. Write it down, focus on it, stare at it until it looks weird, stare at it until you don't like it, put it away, come back to it again. I write everything down because when you write something, you're using a number of different senses. You're saying it in your head, you're feeling it through the dexterity of the hands, and you're watching it visually. And after you write it down, you close your eyes, you can actually feel it kinesthetically. So just remember that nothing comes easily if it's worth having. So write it down, make it just like blinders on, stare at it every day. Anything else?
Would you be willing, Kyle, can you tell us a little bit more about the books that you mentioned previously so people can write those down? They were obviously quite impactful for you.
Yes, Becoming Magic by Genevieve Davis. She has another one after that called, I think, Being Magic. And then my big one for any entrepreneur in this group, Your Life is Nothing But Like a Series of Habits. There's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear that reshaped how I think about how I structure my workday, my thoughts, what I do with my free time. So Becoming Magic. And then another one I would say is Rework by Jason Fried. That's the guy who started 37 Signals, a software company responsible for Basecamp. Rework is awesome for any entrepreneur, a must read.
Padma said, law of attraction and positive thoughts sound great. How could you retain them throughout the period?
Oh man, yeah, I forced it. Instead of listening to music, a lot of times I would deliberately put on audiobooks. Like even if I were in a bad mood, it's like if someone's feeding it into my ears and I can't ignore it, eventually I'm going to become a lot more positive versus listening to like sad music or anything that would that would just kind of feed the bad wolf. I want to feed the good wolf, right?
Kyle, super insightful. Thank you so much for your time and knowledge. I always appreciate you. You are just a magical person. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you. Hassan, you are back on. What do we have to say, my friend?
All right. I am back on. Okay, so next up, we have Tiffany Boykin. Tiffany combined a degree in psychology and social behavior from the University of California at Irvine with experience as a California credentialed school teacher, coach, and business owner to develop and grow My Swim Buddy. Today, she is relentlessly finding, training, and supporting the most qualified and passionate swim teachers who strive to make a positive impact on our youth. She hopes that she and the My Swim Buddy team of instructors can help support you and your family, not just to learn to swim, but to gain confidence, drive, and passion for life. Her teaching methodologies are sprinkled with the influences of her favorite coach, John Wooden of UCLA, and driven by her core principle, success is a peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction and knowing you did your best to become the best you are capable of becoming.
Hello all. I'm not sure if you can see my screen. If you can give me a thumbs up.
Yep, we can see you on here, Tiffany.
Wonderful. I wanted to share a quick slide if you'll just give me a moment. All right. Are you guys able to see my slides?
I do not see a slide up now.
Okay. Well, I'm going to join you back at Zoom and just share with you live, if that's okay.
All right.
Well, I came to you and I was told there's a lot of entrepreneurial bootstrappers on this call or potential bootstrapping entrepreneurs. So I wanted to share a bit about my story and how I used some bootstrapping strategies to become and stay successful, especially during this COVID-19 situation. So Forgive me. One moment. I actually was introduced to you guys through one of the main sources for what has kept me strong. I want to mention Cielo, an organization that helps inspire and lead entrepreneurs and help develop their entrepreneurial spirit. So first of all, I started back in around 2011 building a swim school. It was just me. I like to call it self-employed, doing something I loved. And the reason I chose the swimming industry was I was listening to Steve Jobs' book, Innovation, or this Innovation Secrets of Steve Jobs. And he said, what would you do for free? And immediately I knew that it was what I had done throughout high school and college. It was teaching swimming. I had went to college. I graduated from UCI. I got a teaching credential, was teaching in the California school systems and enjoyed it. Did it for a few years, but I had this little entrepreneurial spirit in me that I couldn't shut off. So I went into, different jobs as I wanted to develop my entrepreneurial opportunities. I first started a move coordinating and organizing company. And that was a blast. It gave me the ability to test out my skills. But I didn't have the passion I have for swimming. So about in 2011, I decided to switch routes to something I could be more passionate about. So all those bootstrappers out there, my key first encouragement to you is to find something that you have an extreme passion for, because when you meet those hurdles and those challenges along the way, or you lose your motivation, if you have a true passion for that industry, it's going to help push you along. And then as I was pursuing this, I realized I was really just being employed myself, and I wasn't yet feeling what it feels like to be an entrepreneur and build something that was more than me, something that I could leave behind for others. And so I took that heart and that love for coaching and turned it into an opportunity to also build a team where I could lead and pass on these skills that I learned from the mentors who brought me along. And I decided I wanted to train instructors. So not only was I going to reach children, which was my big passion, I wanted to help others reach more children. So I followed my heart, like Steve Jobs suggested, to build something. And then I would pull upon another book to help me reach my entrepreneurial spirit, called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, who talks about what it is to be an entrepreneur, how to put systems in place to grow your business and it not just be about you. So with Michael Gerber's recommendations, I built a methodology for my swim school and a way of teaching that I could pass on all of the tricks and trades that I had. And that allowed me then to bring in additional team members to start teaching alongside me. So instead of just meeting the 50 students I could meet alone, I could help 2, 3, 4, 5 instructors also meet another and help another 50 students every year. So this continued, independently. I was from about 2011 to 2014. And then as I got that more legitimate entrepreneurial plan in action, I built my team between 5 and 7 instructors for the last, from about 2015 till now. And along the way, every year I was finding what it is in my business that I needed to do to implement some kind of process or procedure or way of improving. So most recently, I have implemented, or I'm working on implementing, a custom software for booking mobile businesses to help us maximize our opportunities with our clients and minimize the cost of downtime or the cost of booking each other or booking us. So I think the most important thing that I want to pass on to all of you that are considering getting started and maybe you don't have investors is to first and foremost find something you're very passionate about. Second, to pursue that passion with your 100% effort, but then to learn how you can grow that, learn how to build a team around you that you trust, to put into place processes and systems that allow you to take all of your knowledge and pass it on and share it with your team and grow that team. And then third, the key thing that I think turned me into someone who is growing entrepreneurially is to reach out to get resources. One thing I did was I started taking courses at Golden West. I was considering, as my business was growing, being that it was seasonal, I was considering becoming a nurse in the off season and growing and continuing to grow my swim buddy. And as I was going through nursing school, I thought, oh, I'm going to add a few courses at Golden West and help me develop that business skill and that business savvy, because I lacked certain confidences in certain areas of being an entrepreneur. And through that, I did build the confidence through the courses at Golden West. And I also got introduced to CLO, who has been my backbone in giving me the confidence in those areas where I feel less secure. The day I got accepted to nursing school, it was probably a few days after I got accepted to nursing school, I went to my mentor at CLO and said, it doesn't feel right to go to nursing school. I feel like my heart is, being torn in two, and I know being a nurse would be fulfilling, and I know I could do a great job, but I really want to build my somebody. So Elizabeth laid out on a whiteboard for me all the ways, the financial plan to make it work. How many instructors, what systems, what could I outsource? How could I use my strengths to continue to grow it? And she made it really clear for me that I could do it. So get your mentors, go to some courses. There are a lot of low-cost opportunities out there to connect you to the tools you need. They also connected me to opportunities to apply for grants and to participate in competitions where I could gain more support and meet additional people who wanted to mentor and build me up. So Nathan and everyone else out there that is growing something and has started small, you guys can do it, and continue to do something you're passionate about, and trust in the people. Find people you trust to work alongside you and encourage you. And it is possible. It is possible to do it without a lot of money. I got my first loan was for $3,000 so that I could, show a balance so I could get approved for larger balances in the future to grow my business. But I really had zero costs to start myself, no investors. I found something I could be passionate about. And then I sought out the clients. They could see the love I had for what I did. The word of mouth. My first season, I did a Craigslist ad, and I had 50 swimmers through the Craigslist ad and word of mouth, because they knew I loved what I did. And then everything else just kind of built on it. And because I loved what I did and I loved being able to build confidence in kids, I never gave up. When staff got sick or COVID got in the way, I found ways to change and be nimble in the time. Right now, we are building an online swim academy so that we can reach our families and the parents so they can work with their children to make them safer swimmers, as we currently can't meet them right now at their pools. But there's ways out there if you keep that spirit and you find what you love and you let people help you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. So that's my hopes for you, and I'm here if I can be a source to you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I really appreciate your insight and time and knowledge. Please continue to drive safely and be well. Thank you for your insights. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's take a couple of minutes break. We're in the first third here of our event, so let's take a few minutes to ground ourselves, take a little stretch. Maybe you need to go to the fridge and refresh your water, or a bathroom break. But if you'd like, let's take a few minutes and let's breathe together. Let's ground ourselves and let's come together. So what I like to do here is, if it's possible for you and you can close your eyes, please close your eyes and put your focus towards your breath. Feel your breath coming in through your nose as you take a deep breath, and have it fill your chest cavity. Once you've reached the top of that stretch, you'll realize that you can no longer take a breath in, and let that hold for just a second. and then give yourself permission to allow that air to breathe out. Feel the breath coming out through your nose, and feel and focus right there on your nose. Feel that breath coming in and going back out. If your thoughts get distracted other places, simply just bring it back to, I in my own mind like to visualize my nose, and I think about the air literally filling into my body and then slowly coming back out. Let's just do this for about 10 seconds together. It's really incredible to me to see how much of a stretch of a breath we can get, and how there's just that little pause at the top as we've reached our pinnacle of the amount we can breathe in, and then just a little bit at the bottom where we can hold again when we have fully breathed out. This is a cyclical process that is showing us that things are perpetually changing, but they are grounded and centered within us. For myself, I find that when I am the most stressed and when I am really like heightened, I'm not breathing. That's my main issue, is that I'm not taking deep enough breaths. I am taking short and like stressed breaths. So I quickly bring my mind back to my breathing, and I would say that almost immediately my stress drops by about 50%. This has been a huge catalyst in helping me to ground myself and become more capable of meeting the challenges that we meet on a daily basis without getting caught in my feelings. I can quickly ground myself and be ready to help move forward. So I recommend the same for you. If ever you feel stressed, just bring that focus back to your breath. Take some deep breaths in and some deep breaths out, and let's see if you come back to a more grounded sense of self. A few quick things. Maybe we do some basic stretching. Look, I don't have arms anymore. I'm out of arms. Whoa! So we'll stretch up. We'll stretch to the side. Stretch to the side. Oh yeah, so good. Maybe we can touch our toes even while sitting. Look at that. Touching the toes. Feeling good. Quick hand stretch. Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Think we're feeling good. We're grounded. We got some energy back in our fingertips. It's gonna be great. I think it's time to keep moving on. So next we have a Dr. Brian Dozer. Brian Dozer is the president of Vital Link OC. They are an Orange County nonprofit dedicated to preparing students for their future careers through experiential learning opportunities in career and technical fields. He also served as adjunct faculty teaching management, organizational behavior, and leadership courses at Webster University Irvine, where he previously was executive director. Dr. Dozer is the co-chair of the Irvine Chamber of Commerce Business and Workforce Development Committee and is on the board of directors of the Irvine Forward Foundation. Prior to transitioning into this educational sector, he also spent 20 years in advertising and marketing with various media organizations. He holds a doctorate of management degree from Webster University and earned an MBA from Pepperdine. Brian, thank you so much for being on here with us. I'm excited to hear your talk, and if you're so inclined, please take it away. Thank you, Brian.
I'm ready to go. Thank you very much. I'm not going to be probably quite as interactive as you were in terms of moving around as much, but I did enjoy that. So what I thought I would do is just share my screen, and I have just kind of a presentation. So my topic is the top 10 things you can do to level up coming out of COVID-19. And I think it's very important that everyone be considering, what changes are happening to the workforce, what changes are happening to our organizations right now, and how we can prepare for what certainly is going to be a pretty uncertain future. So the first thing I would like to point out is a lot of people have said to me, but I have a job. So, why should I care about this? Well, sure, you have a job. And what happens if you don't? I can't speak for everyone, but I've been through 3 situations in my life where I thought I had a job, and then one day I didn't. Whether it was because my business went under because of the last recession, I was at a startup, or because of a management change. And so I think it's always important that all of us remember that just because you have a job right now doesn't mean you should not be thinking about and preparing for the future. And there are a couple of reasons for this. We all need to be nimble. We all need to be constantly improving our skills because things like automation are a reality. Automation is likely to continue to accelerate, especially given what's happening with our businesses right now. Middle management jobs, from everything I'm reading, are going to continue to disappear. The types and importance of jobs is going to shift, and so is where they're going to be based. And I'm originally from a little town in Indiana called Evansville, and so I did a little bit of research, and I was thinking about, so if I was going to hire someone for a job, and I don't care where they are based, and all other things being equal, if I were to hire somebody here in Southern California for $50,000, based off of the cost of living, I could get that same person for $20,000 in a place like Evansville, Indiana. So where are jobs going to be based? If we are stuck in this process for the next 2 years, and everyone's working from home, someone out here could be at a bit of a competitive disadvantage because of their location. So we need to be considering these things. And then the last thing that I would say on this is, when is the right time to level up your skills? Always. Today, tomorrow, the next day, always be working to level up your skills. So what are my 10 things? The first one is know thyself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the things that you need to be working on? Probably just as importantly, how do others see you? And how does that compare to how you see yourself? One of the things that I find, and as Matthew said, I teach organizational behavior, leadership, and management at Webster, primarily with graduate students, but also with some undergraduate students. But one of the things we often talk about is the concept of self-awareness. And being aware of how others see you can be very, very important for planning your career, and also right now for planning your future. I was having this discussion with my wife as I was putting together my presentation, and she said, what you should talk about is ask people, are they reactive or proactive? Right now, what I'm seeing is that those who are proactive are the ones who are going to come out of this on the upside. Those who are reactive, who are sitting back and letting the situation happen to them, they are the ones who are going to perhaps struggle a little bit when we come out of the pandemic. One of the things I always have my students do is to take assessments. And I don't mean the silly ones on Facebook. I mean legitimate assessments, things like, personality, not quizzes, but personality assessments. So the Big 5 personality assessment is one that is pretty rigorous and very recommended. I just had students last night in my class do one on what motivates me. I also, I do them on things like communication skills and many different areas. And so what I tell my students is, as you take these assessments, realize, what surprises you about it. If you are surprised about the results, and if there is something that surprises you, kind of dig in on that and try and really figure out what's going on. Because again, self-awareness can be very, very important right now. The last thing I would say on this is ask someone you know and trust. We all should have mentors and people that we work with, or bosses, coworkers, friends that we know and trust, spouses. Ask them, say, how do you see me? And that can really help us, kind of peer into our own selves and develop our self-awareness. The second thing that I talk about, and Kathleen from the community colleges will appreciate this because she and I have worked on this an awful lot, is this idea of employability skills. We also call this sometimes soft skills or higher ability skills. These are really, really important. This is probably when I talk to employers, this is probably one of the top things I hear, is that the candidates that we're seeing do not have these types of hireability skills, employability skills. In fact, I mean, literally just 30 minutes ago, I saw a quote that said only 42% of employers considered today's graduates proficient in professionalism and work ethic. And so that tells me that a lot of these soft skills are not being taught or trained going back to middle school through high school and into college. And so when we talk about soft skills, employability skills, we're talking about things like critical thinking, decision making, communication, business etiquette, problem solving, teamwork, all these types of things. And so how can you do that? Well, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit self-serving here. Vitalink has on our YouTube channel a 10-part series called Beyond the Interview that actually looks at these. The community colleges actually have an employability skills program. I worked with Kathleen, I think it was last year, presenting communication for this. She did a great job on it. And then Kathleen and I have collaborated on the Greater Irvine Chamber's Career Edge program, which is for college students. And so we're working on the plans for that next year, but that's a 3 to 4 part series that we host through the Chamber on these for anyone who's in college or university in Orange County. The other thing you can do, number 3 on my list, is certificates and credentials. Most people don't realize just how amazing the community colleges are that we have in Orange County. There are 9 of them. And so no matter where you are in Orange County, you are probably within 25 or 30 minutes of a community college. They are fantastic organizations. They offer great programs. You don't just have to go to community college to transfer to a UC or a Cal State or something else. You don't have to go just get an associate's degree. You can check out their online classes. You can complete a certificate or a credentialing program, or you can just take a class. This is the 3rd summer in a row that my daughter, who will be a freshman in college next year, has enrolled in online classes through the California Community College. Right now, she's taking a Python programming class. She's never been in computer science and wants to study physics. She realized, you know what, I probably need to work on my skills before I head off to college. And so she is enrolled in that. I saw the bill for it yesterday. It's about $100 for a class, which is really very, very reasonable. And so, the community colleges are a great option for this. There are some 4-year universities that have extension programs that have classes that you can take. And then there are also some private schools, colleges, and university programs that are out there for these as well. Number 4 is networking. Now is a great time to be networking. All those meetings you haven't been able to attend, all those people who haven't had time for you, they have time. I just had one of these this morning with someone. He and I caught up after, 6 or 8 months, and spent about 35 minutes on a Zoom call together. I'm trying to figure out ways that we could help each other. One of the things also on this is, are you using LinkedIn? If not, shame on you, get on LinkedIn now. It is perhaps for me and for Vitalink, one of our most valuable resources. How solid is your profile on LinkedIn? You can actually, the LinkedIn actually does a really good job of directing you on things that might be missing from your profile. And so make sure that you are clicking through that list and saying, hey, I need to add this, or, oh, I did write a paper, or, I've got this link that I want to share. And the more active you are on LinkedIn, the more you're going to be seen and the greater your network will be. In terms of networking, if you have a job, you need to be networking. If you don't have a job, you really need to be networking. I see this with my students all the time. Students who are employed, getting an MBA and thinking, all right, I'm fine, I'm good to go. No, what I say to them is, you need to be networking. You always need to be networking. And like I said, now is a great time to network. One of the things to always remember is people really want to help you. I love helping others, but you have to be judicious in your requests. One of the things that drives me crazy, because I get a lot of requests because of the type of work that I do and because of how much I'm out in the community, one of the things that drives me crazy is when someone sends me a request and then 2 seconds later, I get some sales pitch without them ever having had a discussion with me. So people do want to help you, but be judicious with the request. And then also try and offer to help them back. Paying it forward is a critical aspect of networking and a critical aspect of LinkedIn. the next thing you can do is, you know what, you can, for some of this stuff, you can watch videos. The top 6 on LinkedIn Learning this week were 6 morning habits of high performers, time management, critical thinking. You can see a lot of these are soft skills. And so this kind of ties back to what I talked about a minute ago. One of the things that I find, I used to recommend to people, hey, check out this book or read this. What I found is that people are not reading business books or self-improvement books as much as they used to. And so a lot of this stuff is being driven to the web, whether it's LinkedIn Learning, YouTube, there are other avenues out there for it. But this is one of the things that I highly encourage anyone to do right now. They don't require as much time. One of the things I liked about LinkedIn Learning is that it actually tracks your progress through if you're looking at a series. I actually spent some time working on project management and learning a little bit more about project management because it was not something that I had spent a lot of time doing. So it can be very, very valuable for you. Number 6, so what's the number one reason people leave an organization? Bad boss, bad manager. And so one of the things I would say is work on becoming a better manager. As someone with a doctorate in management, as someone who sees a lot of managers and interacts with managers, I think most managers, and I would include this myself, could always be working on their management skills. So pursue some management training, talk with a mentor, talk to someone you consider a great manager, learn from them. There's some really important lessons that you can learn. My first management job, I was just kind of thrown out to sea and told, if you can get back to the ocean or get back to the shore, you're good to go. I really didn't have anyone to lean on, and I made a lot of mistakes early on. And so, I mentioned earlier that we are seeing some middle management jobs disappearing. And so a good manager is going to be even more valuable post-COVID. So work on that. I saw a quote, I think it was on Forbes earlier this week, the demand for top-tier managers will rebound once the pandemic subsides, because organizations will want to emphasize productivity. Productivity is really, from everything I'm hearing, is really taking a hit right now because, first of all, managers can't control as much as they could before in terms of productivity because people are working from home. And it's much more difficult to ensure that people are working on what we want them working on. And so we are going to need, to have a big focus on productivity going forward. And then the last thing I'd say on this is you cannot have a good workforce unless you have good managers. And so again, number 6 is become a better manager. Number 7, look into some productivity technology. Products like Zoom, Slack, Trello, the Google Suite, the Microsoft Teams Suite. These are all very important products, technology products that can help improve productivity. On March 20th, when we sent our staff home from VitalLink, I instituted Slack. We started using Zoom. We're using other products, and understanding those and how to use those can be very, very important. And we actually had this discussion last night on in my class about for those who have not been working for the last 12 weeks, are they going to be behind others who have been working 12 weeks with productivity technology? Is this a new skill set? And I actually think that being able to use productivity technology is a new skill set. And so what I would say is familiarize yourself with these, especially if you're not working right now. Used correctly, they can do a lot of things. They increase collaboration. I have been really amazed by what Slack has done for the collaboration for VitalLink. They can help with project management. We use Slack as a bit of a project management tool, and it has been really tremendous for things like updating our website or keeping us all on task as we're working on a virtual event that we're doing. They can overcome communication barriers. One of the things a lot of people hate about email is that you have to go back and find the email. Some of these technologies, they actually keep everything together so that you don't have to go searching for things. And it allows us to communicate in different ways. And then they also make the workplace conducive to remote work. And being able to work remotely is also becoming a skill. And so Make sure that you are trying to make yourself the best remote worker that you can do. One caveat to this is don't forget to use proper etiquette on these. Remember that just because you're not talking to someone, Slack is still a business communication channel. And I actually had this, I saw this happen. Somebody got frustrated and started posting some things in Slack. And so I actually had to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, just remember, this is the same as if you were on a conference call or if we were together in the workplace. So make sure you're using the proper etiquette as well. Presentation skills. Too many people do not have good presentation skills. I see this all the time. I've seen it from PhDs at academic conferences who literally turn around and face the screen and mumble. I've seen it, I see it in the classroom occasionally. And it is a continuing issue. Fear of presenting is real. Let's just put that out on the table. Some people are really afraid of presenting. Yet 70% of business people say that presentation skills are critical for their career success. And I would argue that in the world of Zoom, they're even more important. It is all of you out there right now have the ability to turn away from me, and hopefully I'm keeping you engaged, but you have the ability to turn away from me and check your email or look at your phone, so that there are many more distractions out there. And so being able to present well and be engaging in presentation is even more important right now. So how do you improve? There are a number of ways. Go watch TED Talks. Watch how those people present. They are really, really good at it because they're given a very short time period and they have to fit in within whatever that is, like 19 minutes. The other thing I would say is join a group like Toastmasters. My wife and I were talking about this. She has her employees go join Toastmasters to learn to speak, and I have recommended the same thing to students as well. And lastly, I would say practice, 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 practice. The more you practice, the more you become comfortable presenting. When I did my dissertation defense, my dogs knew it by heart because I literally did that 90-minute presentation about 50 times to them. And because I knew that it was really critical. And so learning those presentation skills can be very, very important. Last thing on that is remember, the slides support the talk. I just had somebody do this last night. Literally every word that was on their presentation, they read. Number 9 is learn to code. So I told you my daughter's taking a Python programming class. She doesn't necessarily want to go into programming or coding, but it is an important skill. And one of the reasons is that not only does it look good on a resume, but it can boost your problem solving and logic skills. One of the things that she said is it's fun. She actually is really enjoying it. She's actually got me excited. I'm now going to next semester, I'm going to sign up for the same course. She's taking it at Coastline Community College. But having that base foundation is going to be very important for the future. We are going to move more and more and more into areas where, as employees, we need them to understand coding and programming. And then the 10th thing that I would put out there is data analytics. Everywhere I turn, I'm hearing data, 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 data. Data analytics is the science of analyzing raw data in order to make conclusions about that information. It is here to stay. If you want career longevity, go into this. 2 trillion gigabytes of new data are generated every day by our business. 2 trillion gigabytes. Someone has to make sense of all that data. That could be you. You can change the way we live, the way we interact, and the way our businesses operate. It is becoming a vital part of every single business out there. Even a small nonprofit like me with 12 employees, data is really important to us, and we are just starting to scratch the surface of it. Every business, unless you're selling hot dogs for cash out on the corner and not collecting any data, you need to be concerned. Your business needs to be concerned with data. And so what I would say is one of the things you could do is look into data analytics. And then I thought I'd throw in a bonus one, which I actually think matches up with some of what Matthew was talking about. Self-care is not selfish. I think right now it is so critical. It is for all of us to be forgiving of ourselves, to understand that we're going to make some mistakes, as we try and navigate this new world. I also think it's really important that we take breaks, step away from the screen, step away from the computer, go for walks. What I tell my employees, the staff that works for us at VitalLink, is I don't care if you've been on 4 hours of Zoom calls and you need to take a 2-hour break to go for a walk or go to the store, or just take a nap or something just to re-energize yourself, knock yourself out. As long as they are there for the important meetings, and I'm fine if they do the work later on. It is such a critical aspect right now for all of us to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. Self-care is not selfish. Make sure you're doing it. And that will help you get to the end of the pandemic. And that's my presentation. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. It's brian@vitallinkoc.org. If anyone is interested in attending some industry panels for biotech and medical devices with some high school and college students later this week, hit me up. I'll send you the registration link. We're doing that with one of the local community colleges. Just a little plug for what we're doing. And that's all I have.
Brian, that was super insightful. I honestly, I just learned a bunch of things. So thank you so much for putting that all together. I couldn't agree more about the self-care thing. It had to be reminded to me, honestly. I was trying to do it. I'm like, I just don't feel that I'm being effective today. And somebody said, well, there's this whole additional level of stress on top of the daily stress that we all deal with. And we forget about that. We brush it off, just like when we're a little sore or achy. We forget that we're going through something. So it's important to be reminded of our own humanity and to give ourselves that love, and we can be much more effective to the ones we surround as well by doing that. So thank you for that. We have a lot of questions here. So several at least. This one came from Arash. He says, what do you consider to be effective networking, and how do you network now that you can't meet in person at group events? Also, somebody else had asked a similar question, and they tilted it towards how, if you're introverted, do you feel to be a good form of networking? So maybe you can hit on both.
So what I would say is, there are so many Zoom meetings going on out in the world. And so I've gotten on some of those lists, and as they come in, I participate in them, and I then introduce myself to people that I meet on them. One of the other things that I have spent a lot of time doing is saying to people, hey, if you know someone that I should meet or that I should work with, will you please introduce me? And it can take a little bit to get that engine kind of going, but once you do and you build a little bit of a network, that it kind of becomes self-perpetuating a little bit. In terms of introverts, so I'm an extrovert, if you couldn't tell. But in terms of introverts, I don't think it has to be something that is necessarily difficult for you. You just have to find the way that the places to do it where you're comfortable. So maybe, it's something where rather than participating in a large, a big event with a bunch of people, maybe it's something where you set up a one-on-one with someone, and you don't necessarily have to do it on Zoom. You can pick up the phone and talk to them. Again, I think the key, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or just starting out, is, and I think this is really, really critical, is to realize that asking someone to help you is not a bad thing. Most people, and I've worked in Los Angeles, Indiana, Seattle, and St. Louis, and I will say this about Orange County: it is phenomenal how willing people out here are to help you, but you have to ask. And so introvert, extrovert, new in your career, late in your career, you have to ask. If you don't ask, then you can't get started. And you will, I'll connect with anyone, as long as you're just not connecting with me just to sell me life insurance or real estate. If you legitimately want to connect with me and figure out ways that we can work together, I'm all for that. And, most of the people that I work with at the chamber, that's another way. So attend chamber meetings, wherever you live. Those are great ways to network. But most of the people that I have met have been really fantastic about wanting to help out others.
Awesome. The next question comes from Andy, and he asks, how important do you feel is the pro version of LinkedIn, the paid version, versus just going with the free edition?
So I have the free edition. So I do not pay for it. So I don't think it's all that important. Perhaps, however, caveat, given my situation, the fact that I have a job and I have a pretty robust network already, I don't have to worry about some of the limitations that are there for the free version. Early in my career, and also when I was in more of a sales position, I did have the pro version. But now these days, I don't. I think it's just fine for me. But again, you know, everything depends upon the situation.
I really liked your first point where you were talking about the changing workforce and how that's all evolving. And you did touch on a bunch of important points. Do you have any other thoughts or things for people who are still trying to figure out what to do? It's so intimidating when you don't know what work will even exist in 5 or 10 years
Yeah.
to go back and get a full education for it and take on a lot of debt and all of these other things that are associated. And that could really debilitate a lot of people in choosing to make that next step forward. So what would be some more of your recommendations on how to decide and sort of how to position their mind?
Sure. So I think education is really going to be at an inflection point. Higher education, so anything post high school, because of what's happening right now. You know, so I preface this by saying, you know, again, I haven't discussion a lot, and it's one of the reasons that I'm with Vitalink. I do think that there is a bias towards 4-year in the media, parents, and then in some of the high schools. There's this drumbeat for 4-year, 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 4-year. That's the only path. That's not the only path. That is a path, and it's not the right path for everyone. And so what people have to decide is, you know, what are they interested in? And so one of the thing that Vitalink does that we are really trying to do with the community colleges and the ROPs and the K through 12s is to introduce students to what we call middle skills jobs in these 8 or 9 sectors that are important areas in Orange County, things like digital media arts to engineering to advanced manufacturing degree. These are jobs that pay well. Automotive technology is one that don't necessarily require a 4-year degree. And so you know, our motto is explore, discover, and connect. And so that's what I would say to people: do some exploring, right? And then try and discover what interests you, and then connect to people in there. And so, you know, the industry panels that I'm talking about, we're doing on Friday. We're doing biotech and medical device, and we have somebody coming in from Gilead, which is the organization that did the drug remdesivir. And so they're going to talk to students about what it's going to take to get into that. So what I would say to anyone right now is don't decide a path, you know, and then to the exclusion of everything else. Do some exploration in terms of what jobs are going to be. I mean, you know, if we could answer that, we would probably all be billionaires. You know, that's something that Kathleen and I have explored at the Chamber with that group for the last probably 3 or 4 years. And just when you think we know what's going to happen, something like the pandemic happens and it blows it all up. And so I don't think any of us really know what's going to happen coming out of this, but I can tell you that disruption it's big disruption, right? Business, education, across the board.
It is seriously big disruption.
Yes.
It's not community disruption, it is planetary disruption.
Absolutely.
But that's also when the biggest changes and opportunities can come to be. And I think that's something that we can all forget about. Yes, there are lots of doors closing right now, but that means that new things are opening and beginning. And we need to be able to ground ourselves and have the mindset of being able to evolve into the next steps of where we're all headed as a society.
And I think that goes back to my point about being reactive versus or proactive versus reactive, right? This is, I said this to our staff, this is literally the greatest lemonade making opportunity in history, right? Or at least in our lifetime, right? We have been given more lemons than we know what to do with. And so, you know, Vitalink traditionally has been all on ground programs, switching to completely virtual. The organization that we have today is light years from what it was on March 15th.
And anyone who's worked with us can tell you that we are completely different. We have a completely different mindset. We have a completely different energy. We have a completely different focus. I'm actually working on a completely new strategic plan because everything that we had to tear it up and throw it out the door and start over again. And so you can look at that as an opportunity, or you can look at that as a challenge, or you can look at that as something to defeat. And I refuse to be defeated by it. And so does my organization. And so do most of the people that I know. And so we're going to make a lot of lemonade.
And the last question that we have is based around, you spoke to presentations. Obviously, this is something very much on my mind too. The whole reason I started the Pro Presence brand was to help people facilitate better presentations and meetings, especially on a virtual thing, because a lot of people don't know how to do that. I've also talked to a lot of several VCs who have said they're not interested in taking video meetings with people because they don't feel they can create an authentic understanding of what that person is like through a video meeting, and that's just a lost opportunity. I think we're all transitioning very quickly here, and so some people are going to be not as quick to adapt to things like Zoom and Google Meet as others. But what are some of your thoughts on that presentational shift? Like, what do you think about when joining a video meeting and doing a digital presentation versus a live presentation?
So first of all, I think that it needs to be very tight and short and to the point, right? So we hear about Zoom fatigue. The presentations that we're doing on Friday, the panels, normally when we get people together for a panel, it'd be 90 minutes to 2 hours. Nope, 40 minutes, 10 minutes for Q&A for the students, and then 5 minutes for the community college to present their piece. Bam, done, on to the next. So I think you do have, you have to, if you keep it fast paced and not lightning pace, not lightning speed, but fast paced enough and keep people's attention, then you can deliver, a better presentation. I do agree. I would love, I feel much better in person presenting. Because my natural inclination is to move around a lot, and so I find myself kind of sitting here. A lot of communication is body language, and so kind of I feel like I'm strapped to the chair, and so I'm with you. I would rather do it in person, but I think there's some things that we can do in terms of keeping it tight, keeping it moving along that can be important. One of the other things that I say, and I say this to my staff, is turn off your phone. I normally wear an Apple Watch. I take it off when I'm presenting or when I'm in an important meeting because if I get a text, it buzzes and it bothers me and it can break my train of thought. I turn off all the other monitors. I shut down my email. If you're going to be present, be present. And I think that is really just so important for a meeting. And if you're doing a one-on-one networking with someone, the last thing they want you to do to see you do is this. Right? Because then what you're saying to that person is you don't matter as much as what's going on over here. Right? Yes. And so, when I was on the call today, turned off the phone, took off the watch, I have 2 monitors. So I shut the monitors down and I was really just focused on that person. Right? And it's very easy to get distracted. And when you do get distracted, then you lose the train of what's being discussed. And then you can't answer a question. And you're like, oh, wait, what did you say? And then you just look inauthentic. And I think authenticity is something that we really need to be trying to maintain during these Zoom days.
All super insightful. So we have literally like 1 minute left. Tell me one thing that you have either most enjoyed or really learned, something that kind of became new information to you post-COVID. Looking back, what is something that you now see differently?
What do I see differently? I think we all had some deeply held beliefs about how businesses should be run, right? We have offices. We need people to get into the offices. We can't, I think for Vitalink, we always thought, well, we need everyone here in the office. And I'm in the office right now, by the way. I'm here 1 day a week and no one's ever here. Right. And so we have learned that we can do this and be creative and do good work and communicate and collaborate and do all the things that we need to do, despite the fact that we may be stuck in different places. And so I think what we've learned is that we, as an organization, can evolve much more quickly than we thought we could. Partially we've been forced to. But one of the things I'm going to come out of this wondering, and one of the things I'm actually wondering right now is, do I need a physical space? I'm a small nonprofit. Should I be spending that much of our donors' money on a physical space? Or should we perhaps really stick to a virtual, an at-home office for everyone? And then have a smaller space where people can come in if they need to collaborate, but not necessarily the 2,000 square feet or whatever it is that we have that's just sitting empty right now, and is a home for bugs, right? Because that's really all it is. It's a home for cockroaches, spiders, and roly-poly bugs.
Right. This has been super insightful. I have genuinely learned a lot. Thank you for your time and your knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for having
your
me.
authenticity. I appreciate you. This is
Thank you.
Vital OC.
Yeah.
.org. Check it
.org.
out.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that discussion on leveling up. And speaking of leveling up, if you've been thinking about leveling up your career, remember that Learning Fuse is generously donating 10 free 2-week prep classes to participants on this OC Open for Business event. Again, TJ from Learning Fuse will be in touch with the winner. Now, let's pivot a little bit and actually meet our MC and our panel moderator, Matthew Evilsizor. Matthew is a SAG actor and host, serial entrepreneur, and active member of the Orange County startup community. He is a dedicated leader, currently owns several local businesses, including a luxury coffee roastery called Conscious Bean, a search engine optimization service, several e-commerce products, and most recently, as the founder of ProPresence, where he and his team are working to elevate people's on-camera skills, presentations, and professional presence as we transition to a video meeting-based business world. Fueled by collaboration and creative problem solving, Matthew weaves honesty, dedication, care, and passion into all of which he is a part. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Hassan. Hassan is awesome. If anyone hasn't gotten to know Hassan, please take a minute, follow this guy. He's a good person. The more time I spend with Hassan, the more I like him. He's just great. So I think we are now opening to all of our panel here, and I am very excited for this panel. This is, we put this together because we really wanted to cover a wide cross-section of different business industries so that we could ask the same questions and get unique insights from a bunch of different mentalities and thoughts and mindsets and industries. So I'm really excited to have 6 different people who cover a handful of things. We have TK Kenyon from Learning Fuse Coding Academy, who we just mentioned, Chris Dayden from Dayden LLC, it's a software production company, and Joanne Lee from Device Alliance, Raina Rose from The Soul Nutritionist, and Julie Ties from julieties.com, and John Russo, professor of marketing and entrepreneurship at Irvine Valley College. So this whole thing is just going to be a series of questions. I want to get your insights and have some authentic back and forth. Hopefully the goal will be to see how you see it specifically from your industry experience and perch perspective. So without further ado, I'm going to give the panel a couple of minutes, maybe like 2 minutes each. Introduce yourself a little bit more. Tell us a bit about what you do, and give us some insight so that we can really know how to best connect with you and move forward as with the correct industry insight, so we can all tie everyone together.
Would you like to tell us who's going first?
Sure. It's you, because you spoke up. Look at how that goes.
All right. My name's Raina Rose. I'm the host of the Roku TV show Soul Nutrition. I do some coaching personally and corporate, as well as I've worked in the health and fitness industry since I was a 19-year-old starting my first fitness business in Orange County. And so I've been very much on the entrepreneurial path since then, and as well as worked in the aviation industry. And that industry, especially actually in the private side, is starting to really boom. So I might actually be doing some more things in that industry than I thought. But I primarily focus a lot on people's inner wellness and being able to really thrive in whatever business they are doing. And so that always comes from a place of focus. And I help people to really be at peace and focus with what they're doing so that they can move forward to their goals. Thank you. Matthew, you're on mute.
TJ, where are you at, TJ? And thank you, Raina.
How's it going? Thanks, Matt, for the introduction. My name's TJ Kenyon, and my title is the program manager over at Learning Fuse, but it's kind of a catch-all category. Most of my role focuses and kind of is around the career services side. We're a coding boot camp that has both full-time web development classes as well as part-time classes, and also fully remote options as well. And recently we released and started a UX UI design course for people who find themselves inclining towards that a little bit more. And part of the commitment we make to all of our students is that we're going to help them navigate the job search process. And that's typically one of those things that unfortunately is, not usually a ton of fun. And a lot of places, kind of leave that kind of as kind of a secondary, side, and it gets skipped out, unfortunately. So put a lot of effort into that. Super involved with the OC Tech community. I'm also the organizer for Startup Grind Irvine. I'm on the board for Elite OC, which is another networking group. So over the course of today, you'll probably hear me mention networking a few different times, as some of our previous panelists and Brian was previously talking about. And then when it comes to kind of connecting with me, LinkedIn all day, every day, we're going to hear a little bit more about that too as well. So excited to be here, excited to talk technology, excited to talk education, and then as a lot of people are experiencing kind of going through a career search. So got some tips and tricks there as well.
Thank you, TJ. Joanne, let's hear from you. Hi.
Hello, my name is Joanne. I am a PhD student at UCI. I'm studying biomedical engineering, but I'm here to represent Device Alliance as their Young Professional Committee Membership Chair. Device Alliance is a nonprofit that hosts networking events centered around medical device technological advances, companies, any individual who's within that space. And we also have opportunities for you to listen to informative panels, webinars on sort of the changing regulations within medtech. So really, we are a central hub specifically serving the OC area, which is amazing because OC is actually one of the hotspots for emerging and medium-sized types of medical device companies. And we really want to foster collaborations, connections, industry knowledge. And this is a great opportunity, or the organization is a great space for individuals who are starting to either become more relevant within this space and want to get to know more people, or are looking for job changes or to get their feet wet. So it's a space for pretty much what we're talking about here, which is networking and making a name for yourself. So Device Alliance welcomes all individuals from all sectors, and that includes entrepreneurs, anyone in sales, marketing, regulatory affairs, the engineers, scientists, and emerging students who want to enter the field like myself. And we also have a very special section for young professionals who need that extra guidance and mentorship from the veterans of the field. And we're Device Alliance.
Thank you, Joanne. John Russo, tell me about you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Russo. I am a professor over at Irvine Valley College, and I echo so much of what Brian shared and all of the wonderful things about community college. I teach business management, entrepreneurship classes over there. I head up the entrepreneurship program, so really what some of my focuses are, my passion, what I enjoy is working with students and taking the experiences that we have and really helping them to find what their passion and maybe those businesses they want to start and what those might be. I'm also an entrepreneur myself. I owned a pizzeria franchise for a number of years. I've started a couple of other small businesses kind of throughout my path. I did also spend about 20 years in corporate America, so sales, marketing, management in a variety of different industries. So it's been great to kind of see both sides of things from a corporate standpoint to kind of a do it on my own and entrepreneurial standpoint. But now really what I enjoy doing, and I know everybody is talking about networking, and my passion is how can I help young students that are really trying to find their way to experience things, to get through these challenging times, and connect them and help to network them with you, if you will, with other individuals that are willing to help out. And that's really what I get a lot of enjoyment out of. So that's my full-time job is over at Irvine Valley College.
Yes, like the topic says, how do we help each other rise? That is such a core thing for me. Holding each other up is the only way we are going to progress. So again, thank you all for being a part of this. Julie, I can see you. How you doing? Tell me all about you.
Hi guys, my name is Julie Tice and I work as a business coach and consumer psychology consultant. I'm also a digital course creator. What I primarily focus on is helping entrepreneurs grow, start, and scale their business online, really focusing on helping them increase their sales and sign on more clients. The pillars of my business is really combining business strategy and psychology mastery together. So the piece of that I'll probably be speaking a lot on today, that psychology mastery, I break it down into two parts. One, that psychology mastery of yourself, because we go through a lot in entrepreneurship, just handling the roller coaster, especially right now, but also the psychology mastery of what makes people buy, how they do, when they do it, and why they do it. So probably be speaking a lot on that. I have been lucky enough to be an international speaker speaking on some of these topics, as well as I've had hundreds of clients in the last year go through my courses teaching them how to sign on more clients, how to increase their income, how to master their finances while in business. So I'm really excited to be here. If you guys do want to connect with me more, I run a free Facebook group. It's called Intentional CEO. We have over 1,500 members in there and about 70 different countries represented inside. So all you have to do is type in Intentional CEO in the little Facebook bar, and you'll see me on the cover photo. And I have a ton of trainings pinned at the top about how to market, how to start your business, what you should know about selling online, selling on social media, pivoting your offers, especially right now. And that's pretty much the wrap up on me.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, please make sure that everyone puts their contact information and your Facebook page into the chat log so people will be able to contact with you later. Chris, let's go.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris. I'm with Dayton LLC. We create custom software such as web applications and mobile apps. We feel we're different because we fully immerse ourselves in being involved in every step of the process, from planning and architecture all the way through to the deployment and maintenance of any software we create. I'm heavily involved in the Orange County ecosystem. Our team handles both enterprise and very small projects. We all have to start somewhere. My first venture in my very first software company started in high school and early college. So I'm a younger entrepreneur and software executive, and in order to contribute to the community, I know that it would have been useful when I was at this stage as well in high school or college. Our company is offering a free 1-hour virtual whiteboarding innovation session that we normally charge about $1,500 for to help you all plan your software concept and help set you up for success. So if you're interested in that, you can go to DaytonLLC.com, reference in our contact form that you were attending today's event, and we'll be sure to get you scheduled. So I look forward to contributing my technology executive experience to the panel today.
Beautiful. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for being here. I think this is great. To everyone who is viewing this show right now, please add your questions into the chat. We are going to be having a Q&A at the end of this, so I will make sure to get to everyone's questions. And the more the merrier. I think we're going to have a lot of insight here. So let's jump right into it. First question. Here's my first question. Just get into it. In times of volatility, maybe like this one, when you have to pivot or totally transition in your career, how do you decide your own personal true north? In other words, what guides your career and business decisions in times that are extremely uncertain? Let's go in the same order. Raina, go ahead.
So I think that you have to know what your values are and what you want. For instance, with everything I do, it's for peace and prosperity for myself and for the world. And so whether I am doing coaching or doing corporate aviation in a sustainable fashion, which is the direction I go when I'm in aviation, it's all still for the same goal. So maybe you have to pivot your business. Maybe you're not doing exactly what you thought you were going to do, especially in times like these. Maybe the industry you thought you were going to be in is suddenly unable to digitize for some reason, or you're not able to go in that way. But if you know your true goal of, okay, I want to create peace and prosperity for myself and for the planet, what else does that? Then you can easily see, okay, there are plenty of things that do that. And you can kind of, what I have people do is I have them go through a mental inventory of, what do I like doing? And all the way down to like sleeping, right? Like everything that you like doing, just write a list. Like, I like sleeping, I like surfing, and how could I make money doing that? And, you could come, oh, I could do sleep tests, and you can just come up with the most ridiculous stuff, but a few of those, say 100 things will stick. But if you know, again, your ultimate goal of what that is, then you can know, okay, these certain things create the peace and prosperity for myself and for the world that I'm looking to do. And so then in these times of uncertainty, just like Brian was saying, as far as getting a lot of lemons, if we are creative types, if we're entrepreneurs solve problems. And so the more problems we have, the more work we get to do, the more opportunities we have as creative types. So I encourage people, really, no matter what you do, whether you're in a job or you're an entrepreneur, work that creative muscle. Just solve problems all the time, because you're going to become instrumental in a company or in your own company if you know how to see things, know the goal, focus on it, and be able to pivot and solve problems.
Yes, I agree. TJ.
Cool. So I think a lot of people are going to kind of talk about kind of being introspective, looking at yourself. And I think there are two things to keep in mind. And this is something we talk to a lot of our students about before jumping into a boot camp and making this career changes. One, have you gotten the important things in your life in order? One of the toughest things about any uncertain time is the fact that there's so much going on. And in a time like this, as much as we would love to say, hey, go find a new job, hey, go learn something new. Well, first make sure let's say you've got kids, their childcare, their daycare is taken care of, their summer plans are taken care of. Make sure you've got, your health, your meals, fitness schedule kind of figured out as well. Because in uncertainty and when you're trying to do something new and finding a true north, you're adding something to your plate. So get everything figured out first, and then try some things. I think there's this really big misconception about passion that people just know it. And what a lot of people don't realize is that what may seem like a passion at first may not end up being a career passion, or, what seemed like a passion at one time may not be a passion that you have in your life 4 or 5 years later. So try things out. One of the things we always have students start with is there's so many online tutorials and free classes that you can take. Do one of those. And if when you hit the wall, it isn't enjoyable, you aren't thinking to yourself, how can I run through this wall or around it? It's probably not your true north, because if that's the first instance of you getting knocked down and then trying to get back up again in this passion of yours, it might not be a passion. So I'll leave with that and then let some other people share some advice.
Good insight. Joanne.
So I have two thoughts, and I'll be speaking from both a perspective of healthcare and also a student. I definitely echo the idea of sitting down and prioritizing and writing down what your values are, but making sure that you separate those thoughts from expectations of someone else, and ensuring that those are your thoughts and solely your thoughts. But the other flip sides would be for really being empathetic and fundamentally understanding the needs and behavior of your target audience or customer that you want to serve, and listening more than you actually speak. So to reiterate things that we've heard before, offering to help or being the first to offer vulnerability to open hard conversation, and then using that as a means to building your network and building a runway for your current position that would closer align you to your passions, your skills, and your goals. And ultimately, doing all of those factors and really building an environment that surrounds you in a space that helps you get to that goal. And that environment could be things, it could be the space that you live in, but it also is very important in the sense of the people that you fill your life with, and people who would advocate for you who will be your accountability as well as your accountability. So a person who would support you, but also still challenge your thoughts and challenge your pattern sort of habits that may be causing you to not really be at your true north. And be another aspect of that would be just to be vocal about your ideas with these individuals, or even using social media to be able to gauge what sticks and what fails. Really asking people who aren't just your friends of their thoughts, and being able to uniquely combine that into your own, and using that as a platform to move forward with where your business or your career should go. So really listening to your audience and listening to your people.
John.
Wonderful. I just will probably echo a few things that some of the others had said, but I think in this times that we're dealing with right now, I look at it in a couple of different ways. Is it time to find your true north and where you want to head, or is it just something that's temporary? When we think about all the challenging times we've gone through, the recession, the bubble burst in 2000, all these things were temporary to an extent. And I think, Brian had mentioned this as some of the soft skills, but I think adaptability is really important, right? And that's something that's going to really stand out with a lot of individuals at this point. And so do we need to look at, hey, I need to take some different approaches and some alternative choices that may not be my end goal or my dream job to kind of get through these challenging times. But I think as Raina had mentioned, we also need to find, whether it be, you could define it as passion and maybe even a step down from that. Is it something that we really enjoy, or something that we are happy doing, right? And so maybe it's not that ultimate passion, as TJ mentioned, right? It might change along the lines. And so experiencing some of these different opportunities and saying, well, maybe that wasn't something I would do, but let me try that. Let me, get exposed to that different type of career, that different type of industry that might lead to a passion, that might lead to something that you really enjoy. And so I think we need to find what are those things that we enjoy. And again, like Brian had mentioned, I've got some teenage sons as well that are trying to figure out what they want to do. And so getting exposure to different opportunities that create that happiness. And, I think understanding maybe what those things are that we like to do. Do we like working with people? Do we like working with animals? Do we like serving people? Do we like cooking? Do we like the food industry? So finding some of those things that create enjoyment. And then, as many mentioned, can we talk to others? Can we network? Can we experience some of those different career opportunities to see really what's going to drive our passion to guide us in the direction that we might enjoy most?
Julie.
Yeah, so I feel like this is good because we're all kind of saying the same thing, so we must be on the right page. What I teach how to do is you really want to look at 3 things when finding your true north that can, you enjoy doing, but you can also get paid for doing it, because at the end of the day, you have to pay your light bill. So that is, what do you want to do? Super important. That's kind of what everyone is saying about finding your passion. What do you enjoy doing? The second one is, where are your natural talents at? Where are your natural talents at? Are you math whiz, analytical? Are you a practitioner? You words based, all of that stuff. So where are your natural talents at, and what are the needs of the marketplace? Because right, you can have both of those things, but if it's not a need of the marketplace, then that's where you're going to experience a disconnect about making it an actual job. So you want to be able to look at all those 3 things, and kind of like Raina said, it can be in a really good point. Like you, Matthew, your question was like, how do you find your true north in times of turmoil? Well, an entrepreneur's job is just to solve problems. And what we have right now in our world is a lot of problems. So again, that ends up being the marketplace's needs. So start to look at, what do you want to do, where your natural talents at, and what are the needs of the marketplace. And when you get all those together, I feel like you have a really strong, solid path to move ahead. And then one other tip that I have that I do with a lot of my clients whenever they're making a decision is, what would you choose to do if you really removed all of the other voices? Maybe all of the voices that say this is a stupid idea. Maybe you have parents that are pushing you to a certain industry. Any doubts that you have, just what would you naturally do? And it's good for you just to say, you're just pretending right now. You're just imagining right now, and get out a sheet of paper and do it. Because if you're just pretending, then you feel like it's not real, and you don't have to look at all those stuff. Like Raina said, just brainstorm it out. But really, you want to be able to distinguish what is your voice and what is everyone else's voice. And then the things that I talked about.
Thank you. Lastly, Chris.
Yeah, great. What I love about these panels is how we get such a holistic approach to the topic, because we have people commenting from a personal perspective on how to, handle your feelings through the process. From my perspective, as one of many executives that have been navigating the turmoil for the past few months, I think the biggest piece of advice I have is to just kind of slow down and, take decisions intentionally. Make sure you factor your values in every circumstance. And the reason why it's important to slow down in these scenarios is because with the turmoil comes, significant uncertainty. And it doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to navigate that process. It just means that you have to think about the various possibilities that come into play when making those types of decisions. So first and foremost, take some time. We're all entrepreneurs. We work quickly. We're very agile, and we're proud to do so. But one of the things that really benefited me these past few months is, as an executive, taking time to be intentional with my decisions, weigh the various factors, and then move forward when I feel confident that I've considered many of the things that we didn't have to consider this time in January or late last year. Everybody has lots of different opportunities that they're pursuing at the height of business. So, the end of last year probably looks a lot different than your March of 2020 when the pandemic started picking up. So take an inventory of the opportunities that you're looking at and what you've been doing. For any of the companies I'm involved in, we've taken a strong approach to planning and trimming the fat of things that may be a little less advantageous to do right now. So definitely take an inventory of your initiatives. It does not mean eliminate innovation or eliminate the additional studying or curriculum that's going to make your business better for the long run, but it does mean focus on the opportunities that provides the most value for your business. And where I normally find help in these difficult times making decisions is knowing that when I dwindle that list down to the key factors that really are core to the company, core to your values, it quickly reminds you that you're on the right path. It helps you make those decisions once you dwindle that list down and be more intentional with your decisions. And I've heard a lot of optimistic things from the panel so far. It's absolutely true. Chase your passion, make sure that you are doing meaningful work and you're aligning with your values. But I also want to contribute a pragmatic perspective from that of an entrepreneur. As Julie just said about paying your bills and keeping your lights on, I think that many of us have probably hit the spreadsheets in the past few months, and we've looked at revenue and we've looked at expenses, and we're looking to be agile and adjust. I definitely want to continue to encourage that. I think that we have a whole new expectation of what a valid expense should be. I think the whole business world has really trimmed expenses down. A lot of people going remote with their workforce for many obvious reasons. I mean, it's a bit of a shakeup. So I just say go with it. Take some time to make decisions intentionally. And yeah, I think we do need to put our passions and our values at the front of the line, but at the same time, keep those financial expectations and goals in mind alongside it. I'm more of the pragmatic entrepreneur from that perspective, and I think it's important not to forget that as you go.
When you were talking about looking at your spreadsheet, every single panelist started nodding, and I think that is, yes, we're all doing that same thing. So I think that's dead on. I also in this break have read a book that I think is pretty much talking about all the same things that you guys are. Design Your Life. That was a great book and really helpful to anyone who is trying to figure it out. It walks you through a lot of the same steps that people had talked through, and it made a good impact for me, so I'd recommend it. Okay, next question. In a changing market, with some doors closing and new ones opening, what opportunities should people be focusing on now and looking into the future? And I would like to spin this specifically to your industries if possible. Let's switch it up now. I just changing it up. Julie, let's start with you this time.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So I help entrepreneurs grow their business online. So I had quite a few clients, and there's a reason, not just because there was COVID shutdown. There's a lot of reasons why people have already been, like, the freelance industry has massively gone up. Part of that, I know for myself, I was working as a behavioral specialist before I started my own business. I had my degree and I still had a waitress on top of that. And that's really what led me into starting my business, was because I wasn't getting paid enough for the work that I was doing. The work I was doing was good, it was transformational, and it still didn't align. So we've already been seeing this shift into people taking out that middleman and it just having clients come directly towards them. Obviously, there's new skills in that. Like, you need to learn how to market. You need to learn how to sell. You can't just be good at what you do. You start wearing all the hats of what a business owner does. So that's already been a shift I've seen, but also having your business online will reduce expenses of, some of the like brick and mortar expenses that you would have. And I had clients, I did well during coronavirus because I had clients who they were working in a gym and they were a fitness trainer in the gym. So how do you take your program and develop it online? But developing an online business, obviously it has its risks in it as well, but you can start it for a minimal amount if you are really profiting off of your brain and from the neck up. So there's a lot of opportunities to be able to sell there. And there are ways where you can make it more recession proof, because for me, even if my client level would have gone down, I'm able as the owner to pivot faster, to understand market trends, but also the recession proofing comes from I'm not still paying for the lights to be on. I'm not still paying rent space. I really can run my business from a computer and from online. So that's a shift I've already been pushing before coronavirus for a lot of people that have come my way, because you can be your best job security. And I think especially now we've learned from just the times being so unstable that we need to be the ones to secure our future. And I've been saying that again before coronavirus. And I think coronavirus really just put the nail right in there. So that's would be what I'd say.
Thank you. John.
And I'm going to kind of look at it just from an entrepreneurial perspective and entrepreneurship. And I think generally speaking, some of the things we need to look at, and if it's different industries that you may want to get into, are what buyer behaviors are doing and how are those shifting. As we see, and Julie just talked about, if it's going to an online marketplace, if you're transitioning your business online, if buyers are looking for more products to be delivered, more services to be delivered, where maybe we went to them, we're finding that the barbers are coming to our homes now, right? And so, what are our buyers really expecting and what are they looking for? And so if we can find a business like that's going to drive into the economic necessities as well as some of those economic growths. So some industries that kind of pop in mind as we're going and turning to a lot of technology and a lot of virtual. Cybersecurity is blowing up. That industry is huge. So that's an opportunity where, we even talked about Zoom and some of the potential insecurities of Zoom. Well, that's an area that I think there's a demand and a need for. Obviously teleconferencing, and we know Zoom, we know Meets, we know Teams. Is there an opportunity for much more competition as the demand is changing to more of a virtual environment? Obviously logistics and delivery, and maybe you start that small business of, we've got an Uber Eats and Postmates and all of those, but is there an opportunity for a delivery type of business there? So, data, market research, that's huge as well, but we need to look at where are things shifting as we're going more virtual, as we're more of a, on-demand, immediate gratification. And I laugh at my sons when they order something online and it's a 2-day delivery. No, I'm paying extra. I want it in an hour. Well, you haven't had it for, all your life, and now you need it in an hour. Well, those are the buyer behaviors, and that's what certain generations are demanding. And so finding those little niches, I think, can kind of help to lead us in directions of if that opportunity, if you were in the restaurant industry or something that's closing, now what are the opportunities opening up based on new buyer behaviors?
I do agree with that. It was cool to see restaurants sort of turning into grocery stores and things like that when this all first happened and they started selling a lot of the products that they were previously making. And I thought that was a really good, quick pivot to deal with the given circumstance. Raina,
Absolutely.
please.
So I wanted to just piggyback on what Julie was saying, as far as like having different hats as an entrepreneur. I know that there are some people watching this who are very entrepreneurial, and then there's other people who that's just never going to be something that they're comfortable with. You know, that kind of risk, that kind of roller coastering is not ideal for them. And I used to think, because I've been an entrepreneur pretty much since I started working, almost, you know, since I was 19 years old, that everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur, that everybody should do this. And I had a brother who just like was very much like the job track. He wasn't interested in that at all. So I would really recommend, if people are thinking about entrepreneurship and they're not sure, a book like The E-Myth Revealed, where it talks about being the technician and the different hats that an entrepreneur wears. Because as Julie was saying, if you're just good at what you do, but you don't have the other parts of the manager and, you know, being able to do all the parts of the business, entrepreneurship may not be the best path. And I think when we're entrepreneurs, we often, you know, we just talk about entrepreneurship, and for us, that's the best path. And then I want to also address, even if entrepreneurship is the best path, sometimes, I think John was saying, sometimes you're going to need to take another job because entrepreneurship's a little slow right now, you know, and so you may need to go, I think I worked at a hair salon once when my business was a little bit slow because I just needed to pay the bills, but I was still building my business. It wasn't at the point of being really stable yet, but it got there. And it wasn't time to give up on the business. It was just, I had to supplement it a little bit. And I want to go back to, we all talked about our passions as well. And we all want to, you know, the ultimate goal is to have multiple streams of income. And so a lot of us are passionate about many things. And so like I've been talking a lot lately, I have the personal development and speaking side of my business. And then I also work in aviation, right? And sustainable aircraft for private aviation. And these are two different passions, two different revenue streams. And so when, you know, one can be doing, like right now, aviation's doing really well, or private aviation, because nobody wants to get on a commercial aircraft at the moment. And so that's doing really well in our industry. So I have that other stream of income to lean on. And so I just want to say, you know, we want to have, like, think about your passions, and you can have multiple going on, but I would suggest, especially those who are younger out there, get really good at one and then bring on the multiples. And so, you know, you can always come back to that one and rework it. And then as far as industries, I really think sustainability is going to be a great industry in the future. We look at the UK, they have legislated into law that by 2050, they're going to be at zero emissions. And so we see these trends happening throughout the world, and America, when we'll get there eventually, where we create laws to zero emissions as well with the rest of the world. So I think sustainability is going to be a big component. And as well, I think the aftermath of this pandemic, I should say, sanitation is going to be a big thing for people too. Just making sure that we're being safe, that we're not exposing ourselves. We look at, you know, post-pandemic in 1918, and we look at post like tuberculosis. People were very cautious about their sanitation for a long time. So I think that, you know, viruses aren't going away. This one will, hopefully. And but people are going to be looking at sustainability and sanitation, and we're also becoming a lot more connected in this world and a lot more woke and aware. So things that promote the global good, I think, are going to be industries that people are supporting in the future.
I agree with all of that. And I have to say, I really loved how fresh the air was when no cars were on the road. Just throwing that out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, we've been using that in our aviation marketing, is, you know, going towards those sustainable aircrafts and the ones that are putting out 85% less emissions. It costs more, but it's worth it.
It is
and
worth
getting
it.
Companies like Google and Apple to sign on with those kind of things, because they're out there being sustainable, right? And as we pay more now, it brings the demand up, which lowers the price. And so, you know, these are things that and Julie will tell you all the psychology of why people buy or why people spend more actually to make sure we have a clean earth to live on and our kids one day and all these kinds of things. So thanks, Matt.
Yeah, we definitely need one of those. Having a place to live on is pretty vital. So yeah, that's going to be even more important than a pandemic for sure. Chris, tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's done a great job covering some of the external focuses of what we should look at. I'd like to take a moment and encourage everybody to kind of look internally at opportunities within your organization. I think that's something that when the pandemic hit, I think a lot of people are watching revenue numbers. They're watching clients maybe cancel or pause spending. I want to encourage everybody to really look internally at your processes. There's no doubt that in my industry in custom software and technology, we are constantly evaluating the ability to scale the technology as more workload is put on the remote systems as people transition to remote work. We're looking at creative ways that we can keep in touch so that social factor of having a role at our company is not diminished. Our work culture is reinforced with tools like Slack and other tools that really internally are so critical to the functioning of our organization and our clients' organization. So I think we covered quite a bit externally. Internally, evaluate what tools you're using, evaluate your accountability tools, evaluate your work culture and the values of your company from a remote perspective, and evaluate what it means for your organization to make sure you can adhere to those core principles now that we're in a different type of environment. There's no doubt that the modernization and transformation of our processes will need to occur internally in order to succeed externally. So if that's something I could contribute to the conversation here, it's that moment to reflect internally, balance that with your revenue goals, etc. But when we take a moment to absorb what's happening and make the best decisions and make those decisions intentionally, it's critical to value both internal and external equally.
Thank you. Joanne.
So I'll be touching on two perspectives. One is sort of my personal, but the other being healthcare. Healthcare kind of has a target on its head right now because of what has happened in the world, unfortunately, or fortunately, perhaps in our views, as we say, closing doors, opening new ones. The advancement of technology will always be of interest, especially from a medical device industry, from birth till death. We're looking at new tech that can decrease time and resources needed for hospital stays, even just reducing procedure times from 5 minutes to 1 minute or 1 hour to 5 minutes. That builds up in terms of time that saves the doctors, but also individuals who have to go in for that procedure. Also improving sort of like our ancient tools, if you will, like stethoscopes, walkers that our older generations have to use, and maybe we may one day be there. But really, even as simple as reducing the number of nights that we have to stay in the hospital if we're not sure if we have to stay in the first place, and increasing our ways of diagnosing and being more accurate from our diagnosing. And even as important as getting our premature babies out to their families faster and within a safe timeline. So that would be sort of the healthcare perspective of the advancement of technology. But other perspectives that are uprising, that are niches that are opening really holistically, our current structure of healthcare, the amount of money that is spent and the sort of outcomes that we're getting is not manageable for the years to come. And really the technologies that are coming out and the structures that are sort of now being reformed or should be reformed or need to be pushed to be reformed, really not chasing fixing symptoms or fixing when something is broken, but rather have a greater emphasis on preventative care. So ways to diagnose before you even know, or at least have a way that you integrate lifestyle, diet, sleeping habits, the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, the way you surround yourself with your people of your of individuals who you want to be surrounded by, how does that affect your health, and how we can integrate that to your day-to-day life. And so with that comes science policy and how we can politically transform the healthcare structure by taking data that we've collected during this pandemic and be able to push and advocate for new policies that would help improve our healthcare holistically, such that we are more efficient and that we are ready for future emergency situations like we are here. But other rising niches, if you're interested in exploring healthcare, would be digital technology, telemedicine, online therapy, functional, non-traditional types of practices are also increasing as we're moving away from just putting drugs into our body to fix everything, but now to look at our lives holistically. So that's much more of a healthcare perspective. I'll pivot a little to more of sort of, as I guess, an individual perspective. So I'm working on my PhD, and I have the luxury as well as the fortune of being able to pursue it. But at the same time, I realize that it might not work out in the end. And so really for individuals who have the bandwidth to be able to hustle with side jobs, I do multimedia video editing, I do podcasting and recording and editing, that's the microphone and the headphones. I help run graduate professional success events at my university. And on the very, very side, I do art character design for a business, and I take commissions for that, as well as streaming. So I have found that not all doors will be open simultaneously, and I think Reina may not support my my multifaceted use of my time, but I've also found that in case something does go wrong with my PhD, I always have a backup for something else that I'm also equally as passionate for. So those are my 2 cents on both healthcare and an individual aspect.
I actually think Reina would largely support exactly what you just said, because you're not, I think to her point, you need to be very good at something so that you can make a push forward. And if you're too scattered, then you're really not going to be able to be a strong, effective leader, because you're not the master of that expertise. But at the same time, if you are very good at something, podcasting, video production, these are additional revenue opportunities and ways that you can stabilize yourself to be able to explore and try new things. And that also can bring in new opportunities and new resources that you previously didn't know. So it's casting a wider net, and it's feeding those other passions that we have, so we can continue to, I guess I've always said that we are the combination of our life experiences. So what we bring from our life is what we bring into our work. So if we're just doing the same thing over and over again, we eventually are going to stagnate in some way if we're not replenishing and nurturing our appreciation of the life that surrounds us. So doing those things, I think, are really just feeding that for you. And I think that was a brilliant insight. So thank you very much. Who do we want to go to next? TJ. Oh, sorry, Rena, please.
Because you brought me into it, like she's really exercising her creative muscles, and like a lot of those things that she mentioned could actually tie together in one thing if she wanted them to. And so she's like really exercising her mind and problem solving in all of that. So whether any of it becomes a career, sorry, just wanted to give my 2 cents there.
I'd be curious how many entrepreneurs have like one sole thing going. I feel like usually there's several irons in the fire, and we're all trying to move them forward. TJ, please tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, so from an education perspective, kind of what we're seeing now and what we think's going to happen in the future. So even before COVID hit, there was already a drop in the amount of admissions to traditional four-year education, and the main 2 contributors for that were the student debt crisis that we're all very familiar with, and then the limitations on kind of international relations. And so we had less abroad students, international students applying to these four-year universities. So you already had a little bit of pressure on, colleges and traditional education to relook at how that they were kind of meeting the needs of their students and kind of providing what was an expectation. One of the biggest issues with colleges and universities and traditional education is we're asking 18 and 19-year-olds to make a decision as to what to study. And then, of course, this is going to be your career. Well, how often do you go study one thing and then so it just happens to pan out that what's waiting on the other side isn't what you were told or isn't what you saw, in, a TV show. I mean, I've majored in marketing, and marketing is not Mad Men. Mad Men looked really fun. Or, same thing with, working on the finance side. And so one, we had kind of seen, we started to see a little bit of a shift. A couple of the things that had started to pop up previously, one of the big ones is MOOCs, which stands for Massive Open Online Course. And that's going to be something, where you might go online, you might go to Udemy or a Lynda, and you can take one of these classes and you're doing it from the comfort of your home. It's typically self-paced. Unfortunately, the success rate of those is horrendous. It's something like 3 or 5, maybe 3 and 5%. It's somewhere bounce around there, that students who actually start one and finish it. How many of us have started something, didn't have somebody holding us accountable, and then, kind of fell off the map. And so what we've seen is, and what we kind of went through is, how do we open up this learning and we reach more people, but we do so in a way that gives them the existing kind of experience that they had of a classroom. And what we did when, COVID hit is we transitioned to virtual classrooms. And what we learned is you kind of have this balance between allowing people to do it from home, but still having the accountability of an instructor and somebody there to answer your questions. And so from the education space, I expect that we're going to see a big change with that. We're going to see a little bit more hands-on with some of the, instructors and professors. It's not going to be as many people who kind of sit there, tune out. You really have to be, kind of hands-on and keeping people moving, because when people are at home, when they have nobody over their shoulder, it becomes a little bit easier to fall back to our comfort zones instead of maybe doing the homework or the project that we were assigned. And what'll be interesting to see is what happens with the California state system, which, has said that their fall classes are going to be, online and virtual. And so having that balance, and, one, reaching more students, but at the same time, making sure that the students who already were maybe not putting in 100% effort aren't falling through the cracks. So that's what we're kind of seeing now with education. The other big thing too is less and less companies are requiring 4-year degrees. You're still going to have a few different industries where it's absolutely necessary to go get that degree, whether it's, law or, health and medicine, or, something along the lines of structural engineering. These are all things that if it doesn't go right, these are life and death situations that we're dealing with. But a lot of other, aspects of life and what you'd be going into can be learned either online or through networking or on the job. And so, for people who are kind of wondering what to do now, you don't have to take, the jump of, I'm going to go back and get an MBA. I'm going to go back and get a whole new degree. That's where community colleges, fit in great, is they have these classes. And Brian talked about it a little bit before this, where, it's a very affordable class. You can see, how much you enjoy it and continue down that path. And then of course decide, hey, this is right for me. This isn't right for me. From a personal standpoint, I think this is a great opportunity for obviously people to look, internally and see, well, where am I now and where do I want to be in the future? And then take the things where you want to be. So for example, if you want to see yourself in a leadership position in a company, or if you want to be in a place where you have a better work-life balance, well, you're going to have to improve upon your soft skills. That's a guarantee. Soft skills are going to apply to every company. So why not work on your communication? In the chat, Kathleen had mentioned adaptability. It's one of the top 5 in-demand skills from a hiring perspective. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget, is that soft skills can apply to almost every single company and almost every single job. Hard skills can be learned. And so improving, once again, those areas that you aren't super strong in, whether that's, time management, whether it's creative thinking, problem solving, collaboration, working with other people, can go a really long way, because you can take those into any endeavor after this, whether it's going to work for a company full time or it's starting on your own entrepreneurial journey. I think something that a lot of entrepreneurs, kind of talk about and really realize eventually is you're always selling, you're always marketing, you're always having to try to work and try to find, who that next client is, or, adjusting to what the market needs are, because there's almost always going to be competition as well. And if you don't think you have competition, well, then you really, really need to look back at your company and think about, well, what other opportunities, do my clients potentially have? So, personally, I think once again, investing in yourself, taking that stuff where you can grow, and no matter whether it's, once again, a job, whether it's even your work, your family, life, a lot of those things can be applied as well. So you don't necessarily have to invest in a class, but there are so many opportunities out there, whether it's the community college system, whether it's these online, massive, open online courses. Heck, I tell students, if y'all are coming to us and haven't tried out coding yet, go do it somewhere else. Do it for free before you're paying to learn how to do it, because there's a lot of people who are fully self-taught. But there is also that point where you say, you know what, this is as far as I can get on my own. Okay, now I need somebody else here to help me out as well.
I think that's a great point. I think it's also true that the open online classes are a great way to just kind of dip your toe in the water and explore new things and try. I mean, it's practically a free thing. Often it's free, and you can just kind of continue to level up your skill. I usually will do a module or two in the morning just waking up. I like doing it. I take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long I want to take, and I'm just constantly learning new things from different walks and industries. And so maybe they correlate and maybe they don't, but it keeps my mind active, and it allows me to continue to poke and explore at what I may or may not be interested in. So for people that are budget limited or who are considering going back to school, I mean, it's nice to explore and continue. There's a lot of resources out there. Okay, so we have like 10 minutes left on this before we jump into the Q&A, and I have a bunch of questions I still want to ask. Let's see how rapid fire we can make this. Maybe everyone just gives a quick one thought here, but we're just going to jump to it. So rapid fire. In a post-COVID world, what is a new essential for your industry? We're going to go in order, Raina.
I think in my industry, just as much as everybody else's, presence. And of course, you would definitely attest to that. But we are so wrapped up in our phones. We're so wrapped up in spinning to 5,000 things that we have to do, that to be successful in any business, whether you're an entrepreneur or working for somebody else, to be very present, to be listening, to be observing, and to be able to come up with creative ideas, because you're not rushing off into the grocery list or whatever comes next or what happened 5 minutes ago. When you can become very present, that's what's going to give you success in post-COVID-19, especially because we've become so reliant on technology that we can often, turn off our videos and be playing on our phone or doing something else. But to be really present is going to make you really stand out at this time.
Well, I'm glad to be here with you, Raina. Julie, I'm happy to hear with you too. What's your thought?
Yeah, so number one is take care of the clients you have. If you do have a business, it's easier to keep a client than it is to get a new client. And if you can get a client even at a really low rate, it's called foot in the door technique, get them in at a low rate, they're already a buyer, they're more likely to buy in the future. And then kind of answering one of the Q&As I see is like areas for opportunities. So what became a must in my business and what I saw in the last recession, what I'm seeing in COVID is people really want to buy two things: anything that makes them feel in control and anything that makes them feel better. So if you're looking for opportunity in your own business, start to ask how you can already make your new offers something that's going to make them feel better or in control. Or if you're looking for an opportunity, look in those areas. Examples are look at Lysol, look at Purell. Those were things at the time that made people feel really in control. I know in the last recession, sales that went up was in lipstick and nail polish. It might sound weird, but it was a small price item that made someone have that quick fix of feeling good. So I had a lot of my hairdressing clients, or people who cut hair, people who did hair, they went all product-based sales, and I helped them create a sold-out product-based launch because they couldn't cut hair, but they could create packages that really was like at-home care for you to make people feel good. So I would say looking for opportunity, looking for one of those areas. If you're already in business, look at how you can make your offers, make people feel good or feel in control.
Beautiful. TJ.
So this is more for people who are going through a job search. LinkedIn, there is no question about it. If you are not on LinkedIn as a job seeker, you aren't searching for a job. Couple statistics, about 90 to 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn on a daily basis. Reason for this is your resume is going to be one page. It's a snapshot of your career. Your LinkedIn shows so much more of your professional presence. We're still in a really, as much as we all know about LinkedIn, it's still early on in LinkedIn's kind of growth. It's a very safe platform as well. Feel free to post things on there. You aren't going to get trolled. And if you get trolled, let me know. I want to go find that person. Another big thing too, there's 660 million people on LinkedIn, and only 51% of those people actually have a complete profile. So taking the time to go through, putting your profile into a place where it showcases your skills, your strengths. It doesn't have to be just what you did at your last job, but it can be those classes you took online, a post that you found really interesting. And so taking the time to grow that network, because a lot of times the easiest way to find a job and the most effective way to find a job that you're happy with is through your network. And if you don't have that network already internally, build that through LinkedIn.
Thank you. And Chris.
I think what's very important is being able to give yourself credit for what you have achieved to this point. I think that when turmoil happens, the best thing to do is kind of evaluate and take inventory and give yourself credit for what you've done so far. Definitely keep an eye out for opportunities by asking your clients. I challenge everybody to create some new strategies themselves. Like one of my personal strategies is to touch each of my clients every day. I love what Julie said about, a client that you have today is worth so much, and just getting a client is worth something right now. A mentor of mine recently told me that, Chris, the idea of a successful company for the next few months is going to be a company that survives and is able to continue doing business. And I think that leveled my expectations. As an entrepreneur, you read all these, various education mediums, you listen to your podcast, and you're like, grow and scale, right? Everybody's focused on that. But in reality, it's right now just, stay alive and value your clients and create more opportunities to touch your clients and value the progress that you've made today, and don't let it slip away. So I think that's really important experience for myself.
Thank you. Joanne.
Yeah, to echo from what I said earlier about healthcare really focusing on preventative care now, decreasing risk factors by changing lifestyle, diet, etc., as well as higher levels of sanitation and hygiene practices, especially at restaurants, gyms, pools, wherever you are essentially in crowded spaces. That's like a hub for bacteria to grow. And we might even be seeing more encouragement of the use of masks during influenza season, as we're seeing the impact now of COVID-19. But on a more sort of personal level, my sort of new essential is really reaching out to individuals who I haven't talked to in a long time, realizing that it might be the last or first time that I'll ever be able to have a conversation with them. Even individuals who I wasn't very close with, I wanted to sort of just sit down and have 20 to 30 minutes with, who I normally wouldn't go out of my way to because I had the assumption that I would be able to see them or talk with them in the future. But with the light of COVID and how quickly death can come for others, it was a good reminder that not everything is eternal and that we should cherish the people that we have in our lives.
Gratitude is core. It's essential to everything. Adaptability and gratitude. All right, moving on. John.
All right, just from an educational standpoint, one of the things I think that are essential from a learning perspective is the entrepreneurial mindset. And I know Raina said, and I agree, not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. But when we think of the term intrapreneur, so these are individuals that have the mindset that, are adaptable, that love solving problems, that, have the grit, but they don't want to start their own business. They want to go work for a company. But these skill sets, as Brian had mentioned, these soft skills are so essential to employers as well. And taking the time to kind of learn that, and you can learn the entrepreneurial mindset. That's a lot of what we teach, at the college. Brian is kind of doing that in a sense with VitaLink. But again, developing and learning those skills, educating yourselves in those particular soft skills that will take you to the next level when it's maybe time to get another job or when you're going to open your other business. And the other essential, which we keep talking about, again, networking, talking to people, just like Joanne said, reach out to those you haven't talked to in a while, network with those that you know, that are friends, that you don't, that might be in your industry or different industries, and build that network, just as LinkedIn does as well, but also do it on a face-to-face or virtual level as well.
Beautiful. Okay, so we have exactly 19 minutes left. We're going to move into some Q&A. We have a bunch of questions here, so I think maybe the best way to do it is just to have a couple of people maybe pick and choose. If you want to, just throw your hand up. I can see you all, so we'll make it quick that way. The first one comes from Sam, and he is asking about, in light of the current events, what are some ways that you as business owners and entrepreneurs are striving to be inclusive of people of different backgrounds, skin colors, sexual orientations, etc.? What approach from an ethical responsibility standpoint of being inclusive while hiring, networking, and collaborating? So what are kind of some of your thoughts on what might be, what we're looking at? Obviously the world is changing in this capacity very much as well. So how do we help to rise up and the most vulnerable amongst us? That's the topic of the panel in general. Yeah, Chris, you're first.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very proud to say that in light of all the recent events, I'm definitely, trying to be as aware and conscious as possible on how it impacts business. So I'm learning every day alongside a lot of other people. So I'm very proud and happy to say that. I think the biggest thing for us is making sure that our contracting roles, our part-time, full-time opportunities, everything that we have available is shared through a very wide medium of outlets, not just necessarily the same job posting channels. I've been educated recently that there may be, systemic biases throughout certain types of job posting mediums and forms that would prevent the opportunity for very qualified and endearing candidates to reach access to those. So that's something that I'm learning and engaging with. So just encouraging business owners out there and everybody hiring or looking, right now, even a contracting role is valuable right now. I mean, late last year, everyone was looking for the full-time employment role. They were looking for benefits. They were negotiating hard. But I think to value all of the opportunity we have is important, and make sure that you get those opportunities in a wide variety of mediums as far as posting the job or reaching out to people. I've been trying to engage directly with folks at community colleges, organizations and groups that can post those opportunities inside intranets like the WeWork community networks and other places, just to make sure that the posting isn't just going down the standard job path. So I would encourage everybody to get creative with the exposure for your roles to help, make sure you go against any type of systemic bias that may be present. That the biggest challenge for me is you don't even know it's there until you really educate yourself on it and you really work towards it. So I'm happy to say and proud to say that I'm becoming more educated on that and embracing any innovation that people have to offer.
I think that's another core aspect is I think every person has implicit bias in some capacity, and the more we educate ourselves and become aware and expand our view of how we see things, it will help us to be more inclusive in all capacities, both on a human level and as a business owner or entrepreneur, or as a coworker. So yes, thank you for bringing this up. Reina, you had some thoughts.
I actually grew up in like this really wonderful international school where like all people's differences were celebrated. And so my Roku show, it actually is a pretty strong, like fundamentalist Christian white Republican audience. However, I make a very strong point to bring on people of color, Native Americans, LGBTQ friendly pastors, people of different perspectives, even if my audience isn't very diverse in general, that I'm bringing different people's perspectives to say, this person's an expert in this area and they're very intelligent, and my bias that I may have had could be wrong. And I always say, like with my show, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I'm trying to get them to ask new questions, because you don't change someone's whole paradigm in an hour. But I can get them to ask new questions. Like, I didn't know that about the Native American plight. You know, maybe I should ask myself this question. I didn't know that this person was having, you know, I wasn't woke before. What does that mean? And why should I be so? You know, like, just asking new questions. I'm not going to shift their whole paradigm, but bringing on guests that give them a different perspective from someone that doesn't look like or think like them.
Yes. Most of these issues come from fear, and it's just what we don't know, we fear. So the more we can educate ourselves on that, the more empowered we will be. Yeah, Julie, and then we're going to move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'll be fast. So I made a post to my audience the other day, and it said, you don't have to solve all the world's problems, but it is your responsibility to show up and serve where your gifts are needed. So I really think as a business owner, you can't be an expert on all the issues that are being impacted, but you have to know where you can show up and serve. And I'll just use myself as an example. Where I best serve is helping disadvantaged women succeed in business. So I also have to know that my gifts are needed, and it's okay for me to speak up with my voice in the industries that I work with. I've worked with clients of all races and sexualities, and that have come from all different backgrounds, that have suffered from mental illness, that have gone through abuse, that have gone through poverty. And that is where I help people succeed. And I know for me too, I wanted to keep thinking about my offers, keep thinking about what I can offer. And currently I'm running an opportunity for anyone who is either a Black female entrepreneur or a minority student, for them to sign up for my money mastery course, which is exactly what I needed in that situation when I was a student. So also, if that's anyone on here, please reach out to me.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay, the next question is education based. Are there things in the community college system are there things the community college system is doing that could help me prep for the next step affordably? John, do you want to kick that off?
When you say next step affordably, is that a 4-year institution that they're going to? I don't quite understand.
They just spoke to the community college system.
Yeah. So in terms of affordability, the community college system already is very affordable at $46 a unit. There are also other programs that are in place. There's an Advantage First, I believe it's called, where first generation, and now they've even made it where freshman students are incoming free community college, and a number of, and I don't know where this individual lives, but a number of different community college districts are offering, when you come out of high school, if you go directly into community college, there is free tuition for the first 2 years. So they'd have to check with their local community college to find out specifically that program. But I don't know if it gets any more affordable than that, if you can do free community college. There are some other small fees, but like everybody has mentioned, it gives you a great opportunity to try some of these shorter, smaller classes at a very, very affordable rate. So I'm not sure if that answered the question to the extent that he had, but
yeah,
TJ's
absolutely. TJ.
Yeah, I mean, I just got some other kind of thoughts and additional things in there too. So, you know, obviously there is that community college, you know, the affordability that starts out with there, but there are a lot of employers out there too that do invest in your education. I know Starbucks and McDonald's have some amazing programs put in place. And so, you know, while it might not be the, you know, glorious office job that a lot of people look for, that could be where you're getting your priorities figured out while you focus on your education. Something to be careful with, and I know I talked about the student debt crisis and kind of issues before. A big topic right now is ISAs, which are income share agreements. And it sounds great at first because it's free education until you get a job, and then money's taken out of your, you know, paycheck and paid back to the school. There's a lot of fine print to those. So you really need to make sure you're looking at what could happen if you do have to leave school early, how much would be getting taken out later on. You know, the last thing you would want to do is go through, you know, school, get a job that you're super excited about, and then realize 15% or 12% of your salary is being taken out right away. So definitely kind of keep an eye out for that. And then there's a lot of grants as well too. So your current employer, there's companies, California has a state training grant where every company can apply for anywhere from like $1,000 to $1,500 in training, you know, funds that they can apply, and if it kind of aligns with their industry and business. So there's some creative ways to go through there and get some money.
Awesome. Sure. Joanne, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, although this is not exclusive to community college, but as Device Alliance is a nonprofit organization, as with a lot of other types of resources in terms of communities that are available out there that have free webinars, that have events like this for you to attend, these are your opportunities to network and to make those next steps, which is to find individuals that you can talk with, have a great relationship, build from that. And although you might not be looking for a job right now, you might still be a student, they might be your future boss, they might be your future business partner or your life mentor. You don't know that until you actually build that relationship, and you continue to foster that relationship regardless of how you met them, whether that's on campus, off campus, and really just being open to other types of opportunities. I actually met a lot of my contacts while hiking. I went to a hiking group that I happened to enjoy hiking. These individuals were in the healthcare field, and we just hit it off, and we've been friends since. So there are lots of ways that you can create your network and build your next steps that don't really have to cost money, and they also don't have to be structured within your standard typical college types of lifestyle.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, we have 9 minutes left, and so let's see if we can get people to pretty much give like a one-sentence answer here, and we'll try to hit everyone with the next couple of questions. What industries are you seeing an increase in demand area of opportunity for freelancers? Who wants to jump on that one? Anyone? Chris.
So from an enterprise perspective, I'm seeing a large increase in technical project management from my perspective, because a lot of big companies are launching big internal projects while things are slow. They're not worried about surviving, they're worried about optimizing and getting back out there. So although there's many others, we talked about cybersecurity and other things, to keep my answer short, technical project management is something that can be pretty self-taught, and I would encourage anybody who is organized and willing to project manage, that knows a little bit about software, may be a good opportunity.
John.
I always get requests for coders, and I know you guys have talked about coding quite a bit, and as side gigs, being able to learn how to code to write an app for somebody. I can't tell you how many times I've referred people to a high school student that I know became a great coder. So coding is one, website development, and social media marketing seems to be another, from a kind of a perspective of someone that's trying to do something on the side as a side gig.
Beautiful.
I'll just quickly kind of play off of that. So yes, website design, coding, all that can be tough to learn, but there's also some really easy platforms out there like WordPress and Shopify, which are built for you to build, or they're essentially built for entrepreneurs. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs too who don't even have the time to do it. So those are great tools to start to play around with. Pretty easy to just get going on your own project there.
Wix is another good, easy to use website development site.
Same with Squarespace. I like Squarespace a lot. And once you've made 3 sites, they give you a discount, put you in the circle. Yes, Joanne.
Yeah, also in the healthcare, every company needs to be able to get whatever product they're building into the customer's eyes, view, hands. So that means any type of promotional types of images, so medical illustration, but also medical writing. So taking complex science into something that is more generalizable, understandable for the layman, and for them to be able to see the value in something that's so complex. That's a form of communication and freelancing that a lot of individuals have been finding themselves in.
I'm going to piggyback on that. Content writing in any industry will really help people's SEO marketing go up. And so definitely content writing, I'm going to piggyback off Joanne.
Beautiful. All right, 5 minutes left. What is the most important thing to pay attention to in your industry right now? So I'm thinking like maybe a publication or a specific expert or somebody who is the most insightful point of contact or knowledge that you are thinking of right now. Raina.
I've been really paying attention to this coach called Shannon Graham. He only takes on 10 clients. I think he's above $150,000 each per year now, but he does complex problem solving beyond just the normal coaching. And I think that any of us, regardless of what industry you're going to go into, need to, work on the personal development, the creativity, and the complex problem solving that goes into creating whatever you're going to create, whether that's a job or a business.
Julie.
Yeah, this is opposite of exactly what you just asked us, but I tell my clients, do your best not to look left and right, do your best to look forward and backward. So I'm not going to list a person, but I am going to say you want to watch the trends, and the best way to also, you can look at research. I have to do that a lot in what I do about market trends, but also the best way is to test it yourself and to be able to pay attention to what is working, and if something isn't working, to do something
Where are you
else.
looking at these market trends?
If you are a business owner and you're selling, then you need to be putting it out there. Is your product selling? For me, I'm writing a lot of sales copies in my email, on my website. So these are all analytics that I'm going to be looking at. If you are someone who's running Facebook ads for that, you want to be paying attention to that as well.
So you're saying more internal analytics, not necessarily market research in general, like Google Trends.
Yeah.
Okay. TJ.
There's the unmute button. So when it comes to Orange County tech, there really isn't a better media source out there right now, at least, than the Accelerate OC podcast that Carrie Ransom has put together. It is the who's who of, who's leading, whether it's in the education space, the technology space, what's going on in Orange County. And from a networking perspective, one of the things I think a lot of people need to keep in mind is everybody here on this panel, almost everybody who's in that participants list, we've made ourselves available. And when you listen to these podcasts, when you go to these events, find the people and just go connect with them. And that's such an easy way to get the ball rolling. So when it comes to, once again, OC Tech, Carrie Ransom, and Accelerate OC, and then of course, groups like 1 Million Cups and OC Tech Social, and all of these places where it's so easy to go out, find people, and then just listen to what they're talking about and then go from there.
Chris.
Yeah, I think processing internal, like Julie said, and external, like TJ mentioned, very important. There's so many groups out there. I would say it's really easy to, forego participating in those events. Really force yourself to consume the content and the information around you. I try to at least consume, an hour a day. We're all very busy people, but if you consume the information from your industry, I like a blend of sources. I don't necessarily follow anybody specifically. The blend is what allows me to see the patterns when I'm evaluating something. So, I might follow certain blogs on Medium. I might follow certain people on Twitter and other places. I'll follow companies' social media to see what they're advertising that are close in my industry. I digest all of that. I look internally to what customers are asking for. Like I said, I try to touch my customers daily since the lockdown happened. Digesting all of that, getting out there, attending events, which I would just say, shortly, the event scene moved very well from, in my opinion, very well from in-person meetups to virtual meetups. So if you feel for any second that the meetup stopped happening, then you're evaluating it wrong. And if anything, I'm able to participate in more meetups because I don't have to travel as much, and I can fit it into my schedule. So definitely some advice for consuming is to just block it off in your calendar, get it off weekly, and just make sure that you're prioritizing it, because that is where you're gonna fall asleep behind the wheel if you don't digest internal and external info that way.
Definitely. Joanne, we got like 30 seconds left, so I want to make sure we get to both of you and John.
Okay. Again, healthcare technology for sanitation, and maybe there's a superbug that's going to be impervious to Lysol and UV rays. So early detection, diagnosis, and policies that will standardize the way we respond to these types of epidemics. As a side note, I'm always looking to improve myself. So impact theory, health theory, sort of our podcasts by Tom Bilyeu, who are at this intersection of self-improvement, but also exploring health in a different and new way.
Thank you. Very insightful. John.
And so many resources, but just two I want to mention, and Chris said the word there. Meetups is one that I find a lot of students are not familiar with. Great place to find like-minded individuals, just like Joanne said, she found people she likes to go hiking with. Great place to find like-minded individuals. Also, a government site, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS.gov, a whole host of information on industries, what's paying well, what's growing, what's not. great place to start if you're thinking about different types of industries to get into. So that's a good resource as well.
Beautiful.
Did I
Guys,
make it in
everyone.
time?
Yes, we did it.
Okay.
Woo! We did it! Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everyone. This is very insightful, very helpful. I hope this is impactful to everyone that's listened. Thank you for taking the time and being with us. And please make sure, if you haven't already, or if you want to again, throw all your contacts and any insight you want to do into the chat list so that everyone else can see that and be able to connect with you directly. And thank you again. I genuinely appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Hassan, where are you at? Yeah.
Here I am. All right. So again, thanks to all the panelists today, and please reach out to them and connect. I know that they all have a heart for helping people. I know some of them personally. I know that they care, which is why they joined us here today. So please, you can find their names in the notes on the website and look them up. Our next speaker is Jackie Harmon. Jackie is a recruiting and company culture expert who helps companies screen and hire people, creating powerhouse teams. Now, I've personally had the pleasure of seeing her work firsthand when she helped me build an office in Orange County for my previous employers. So I was very happy with her work there. What makes her special is she knows how to look beyond the resume to find people who will be a good match and will deliver their best work. She's built successful relationships over her 20-year career, and she acts as an advisor and a collaborator across teams and clients while spanning business units, key roles, and global markets. Although the tech industry is where Jackie has spent the majority of her focus, and that industry commonly hires recruiters as contractors, she really sees herself more as a founding member of the team by integrating within the teams, promoting the brand, and identifying the culture and setting up best practices. So without further ado, Jackie Harmon.
Hello, everyone. It is an honor to be here today. And I hope you can see my screen. What I see is Hassan currently. So hopefully I am on and ready to share my screen.
You are on and ready to go.
Okay. You know, I want to thank Hassan, especially my friend and my mentor, for introducing me. And I have to say, for Matthew, our MC, and Matt Zimmer, who's behind the scenes, you know, your work in supporting us and your superior organizational skills have really made this event happen today. So I appreciate that. I have been assigned to share, hopefully this is sharing here. I am a recruiter, so I have been assigned to share how to get hired in an uncertain economy. I think what I feel is most important, or my favorite part of recruiting, is actually hearing people's stories. You know, I'm on the phone all day long, and no matter the position that somebody's applying to, or what their career path is, all the stories seem to be relatable. So what I am going to do today is kind of turn the tables and talk about my experience, personal experience with my own career. And the goal really is meant to not only, you know, it's really to make it translatable during this specific economy that we're dealing with. So I grew up in Huntington Beach, so I guess I would consider myself more of an OC. But I did my undergrad in psychology at Long Beach, and but I came back to Orange County and did my one of my internships at UC Irvine's Alzheimer's Clinic. And I was on definitely a path, decided to apply to, and I got accepted to a graduate program in San Francisco. And what I realized is my 2-year program was coming to completion. I found myself, and it was pretty apparent that I was physically sitting in what was becoming a tech mecca. San Francisco, in that time in the Bay Area, startups were sprouting on every corner of Market and Soma, and it was almost impossible to not be a part of what was going on. So instead of that waitlist, I was waitlisted for a PhD program in clinical psychology. I decided to jump right in to tech because it was right there. So I temped a little bit. I secured a job selling software. And although the software was the hottest at the time, it was Flash, and Macromedia was the company. And everybody was using it. But what I found myself more interested in was actually hearing the end user, how they were using this web design software. They would direct me to their websites. And so that's when I knew that not only was I interested in pursuing this tech world, it was the people side of tech that I gravitated to most. So I started in an agency, which was just pure chaos. And I felt I was making more relationships with the people, the folks that were inside the companies I was trying to fill positions for. So I made the jump from agency to in-house, and I became the first staffing manager for snapfish.com. And at that point, consumer online photography was pretty hot. So I had fun. It was a fun time. I built a team, built a family, it felt like. And, parties were happening, the startups were happening, people were throwing money left and right. And then what felt like overnight, everything imploded. The entire landscape, everything was flattened. Most companies were downsizing dramatically, massive layoffs. I was part of pink slip parties, which I still have nightmares about. But everybody was, where it was a candidate, everybody was having great experiences getting hired. Now it was a mass, like who could keep the very few jobs that were available. And so where I was becoming skilled at something I never want to be skilled at again, which is reduction in force, I had to find myself, I had to pivot. And so during that time, I looked outside because, I was laying people off. I had to lay myself off. There's no need for a staffing manager or recruiter generally when people are laying off or there's a halt on hiring. So I decided to do a little stint as a vocational counselor. And then I also thought I'll use that master's degree in psychology, and I became an assistant director for a non-public school that was serving special needs kids. And, I don't know if anybody knows the Bay Area, but that was, I felt really rewarded in doing that work, but it was driving to Pittsburgh. There is a place called Pittsburgh, California. It was about an hour when there was no traffic outside of San Francisco in the city. So I decided to take my recruiting skills, so pivot again. And my partner at the time, who is a teacher, I found a job at the American Overseas School of Rome that they were hiring a history teacher. So we moved, and I got a special ed aid position. So we kind of rode out that whole dot bust time period outside the country. Now, I don't know if Italy's the best place now to be doing things like that. But so when I came back in, Craigslist was where people went to go look for jobs at that point. So as a recruiter, that's where I was. And I saw that Snapfish was looking for a contract recruiter. So I wondered who was still there. Would they hire me back? I love those people. And so as soon as I applied, they called me back and said, get back in here. So from a lean team of 15 that was holding that site together for that, 6 months to a year time period, we grew together, but a lot of the efforts was, getting back people, boomerang candidates like myself came back in, and we built that company up to 150 people, and they were ready, and with solid leadership, the company was acquired by HP. So that was definitely a success story that happened within that. Most startups didn't make it, and the industry in general had to change its ways. So, I happily stayed within recruitment, but in 2009 was the next time that I would call it a hard hit on our economy, a crisis, some would say. And at that point, I had some experience, some history on knowing, hey, I want to stay within my industry, but how can I best find my way through it? And I went back to the agency world because many companies, big companies, they still had projects. They still needed staff members, but they couldn't hire full time. So the agencies I chose were specifically for temp to perm, And the focus I was finding, there were certain areas that were emerging: online marketing and social media, because 2009, that's when that was sort of coming up, and also mobile, because smartphones were coming in. So, I was able to stay in my chosen career, but I had to kind of shift over and utilize. And so during these periods, both of these economic downturns, I'd say my key takeaways were, looking at transferable skills and looking at kind of specializing within, and as we've talked about, mentors and networking. So I want to do a deeper dive and make it translatable to today. So the translatable skills, I would say, are a little, like we've already talked, Dr. Dozer mentioned the soft skills in some way. But, as I mentioned, I did a short stint as a vocational counselor. And during that period was the first time I heard they called it a TSA, a transferable skills and assessment. So transferable skills, unlike hard skills, these are skills that aren't really specifically relating to a particular job or task. And they're kind of a broader leadership communication. We talked about those, and the skills that can be transferred and utilized in a variety of different kinds of jobs. So that was the point. I was able to pivot, as were others, when they could take those skills that they already had that weren't specific to an industry and utilize them. And so since we've already talked about, how you would look at what you can do competently now and what you're proficient at, I think, it's really learning where you can deepen and kind of broaden that kind of skill. And I know that the panel discussed some of this, and it's, reinforcing TJ, what he said about soft skills. So that, I think, is really vital, because working as a vocational counselor, I had to take people who had been injured on the job and get them trained. And if they didn't know where their true skills and where they wanted to, their passions, where they wanted to be, they floundered a little bit, and they ran out of the funds. It's like all of these billable hours that they had to deal with. So having a clear sense of what you're good at and where you can actually develop, that is a good place to start when it comes to actually looking for the whole idea of being a standout candidate. Now, I think everybody has heard the term elevator pitch. It's a career narrative. It's a very clear, concise way of deciding on where people are, what they've done, and very clearly what what they want to be doing. Because these days, if recruiters are on furlough and they're picking, the actual hiring manager is the one looking at the resumes coming through. And if you don't have an idea of how that's going to align with what you're applying to, then they're just going to dismiss. And that career narrative or elevator pitch can be used when you're networking. It can be used on your resume as an objective. It can be used in your LinkedIn summary. But be really clear what you want to be doing. And if you are in transition, or you are, you're very skilled, you've got 5 years as a business analyst in the financial services industry, but you've just taken on and you've done some work towards, a certification or a boot camp with product management, you want to move over to be a product manager, you can have 2 resumes to pull out whenever, you're thinking, when there's somebody who's going to take a risk on you and consider you for, or if you want to stay within your career and kind of develop within your own company, kind of make that transition within. But, brand presence, we've talked about how people, you want to be on LinkedIn, but, hiring managers, you'd be surprised. If I set up a 45-minute phone screen with a hiring manager, they often, more than 50% of the time, they've already done a Google search. They've looked up people's, GitHub. If it's somebody who's technical, look at their, code repository. Designers will always look at somebody's portfolio ahead of time. So make sure that your brand and your online presence is consistent and is something that you want to represent. Kind of being becoming more of who you truly are and be consistent about that. I think that's something that I would feel is probably most important when you're looking at You want to be able to know how you're going to be the standout. So if you are putting together, you're getting specialized training, you want to highlight that and make sure that when you are, part of looking, it's really keeping you at a place that will, like, if you're compared to another candidate, is going to pull you in. And, as an example and a shout out to community college, I had that time between undergrad and graduate school. I had a summer, and I saw that OCC, Orange Coast College, was, they had a certification for hypnotherapist. And I don't know if it was the OC fair I used to go to, but I was always intrigued with, that hypnosis, that idea of it. And I thought, and I'd seen written, kind of papers and studies on the effectiveness of hypnosis within a therapeutic sort of setting. And so I got that certification. It was limited time and limited money, and it actually catapulted me, got me my first clinical internship in San Francisco. So there is always, surprisingly, something that can be offered in that sort of setting. So be the standout, get yourself specialized in the areas that you feel will take you and, highlight the areas that you want to be skilled in, and actually comparatively put you ahead of the game. Now, we've talked about it, and I just want to reinforce it. And, I may be biased because of my experience, but I think this idea of mentors and networking is probably the most vital piece of securing a position. Mentors, my first mentor was in academia, Dr. Robert Thayer. He was, published psychologist, and he was somebody who wanted me to work with him in Long Beach, but he knew I wanted to go up to San Francisco. So when he found out that I wasn't hearing back from San Francisco, he actually called the university and asked what was going on with my GRE and my grade point average. I should be an absolute. And they were having complete chaos in their office. The admin was let go. They didn't even get my application for the clinical program that I applied to. But because he went above and beyond, and somebody who was respected in the field, he not only scored me a position within the research-based, the social and industrial organizational psychology program, but I also he scored me an assistantship with the professor he was talking to. So that particular instance was something that no matter what, if Dr. Thayer was coming up to San Francisco for a book signing, I would always take him to dinner. I always nurtured that relationship. That is hugely important, to keep that relationship always intact. The other, which is more career focused, Raj Kapoor, who is the CEO and co-founder of Snapfish, he went on, after the acquisition, he went on to the Mayfield Fund as one of the youngest venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. And because he was putting money into these new companies that were needing to go from seed funding to the next level of funding, he would tell them, you need to hire some key people to be able to show that you're serious. And he would refer to me so many leads. It was amazing. One such, I met with Logan Green. At the time, his company was called Zimride. And he offered me a contract, but they didn't really know, their business model was sort of shifting a bit. So by the time they worked that out, they're now Lyft. So I'm sure somebody has, in this group, maybe many of you, has ride shared through Lyft. So that was not only an amazing experience, but Raj has been, he's just such an entrepreneur. He's started businesses. He's served on the board of Lyft. It's just, these are relationships that are not only focused for career, but just a lifetime of potential, opportunity. And, we talked about networking. I'd say, if it allows decision makers to assign a face to a piece of paper, a resume, people can apply all day, but until they meet you face to face, or you reach out to them directly, there's a connection made, you're now a person. And, there's many ways that you can get ahead of the game. I know it's all virtual now, but, you can get access often to the guest list, or just looking at the speaker list. And if you reach out ahead of time, you have a purpose when you go to those events. For me, my purpose as a recruiter is to gain more talent into my pool. But for you, it could be looking to gain that mentor. The number one way that you will get traction if you apply to a position is to be referred in. I promise you, every recruiter is, we have in our applicant tracking systems, if a referral comes in, there is a certain time period, 24 hours to 48. But you have to follow up on referrals. Even if they're not really the perfect match, they almost always invariably get a phone screen. They get a lot more play. So if you can get yourself the right kind of mentor and do your right kind of networking, you will get more play. It will catapult you through the process. And maybe, I can guarantee from what I've heard today and what I already have known, and I believe that this event today would not have happened had it not been for the 1 Million Cups networking connection. And I guarantee I would not be speaking today if it wasn't because of a mentor that I have in Hassan. So, that's just a perfect example, I think, of networking at its best. Now, specific to COVID. Now, I've told you 2 examples of my personal history with economic downturns, crises. This is unprecedented.
About two minutes
Okay.
left, Jackie, just so you know.
You have to be prepared, as we talked about, you will be interviewed virtually. And, you have to know where you're going to come in at as far as your flexibility. Some people, have non-negotiables. They will not relocate. They will not commute. Some people are not good at remote working. So be very aware. It was mentioned already to be empathetic. Hiring managers are really, following, they've got a lot going on. And self-care, I'm going to reiterate, I know I'm just sort of reinforcing, hopefully not sounding redundant, but, some people, meditation is big in Matthew's case. I think, if you haven't figured out how to best be your, most positive, energetic self, because that's what gets you, the interview, that's what scores you the job. Call a friend that motivates you and gets you feeling the most positive and knows your talents and gets you excited right before an interview, whatever techniques that you can use. And there are plenty of resources from career coaching, of course, LinkedIn, join groups. Recruiters have to be on LinkedIn. Recruiter seat is so expensive. So they have to show metrics that they're actually using it. So that's where they're sourcing from. You can join and get involved in lots of things that are specific to your industry. Ask recruiters where the need is to see yourself where you want to be focused in what industries these days. But I appreciate the time and I thank you all for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Yes, we cannot have enough insight from, there are so many people in transition right now. So I think your insight was invaluable. Thank you so much for your knowledge. Okay, we are on to our final presenter. This is a very interesting man. I'm sure pretty much everyone in the world has heard of Niagara bottled water, and rightfully so. It is a massive company, and this man built it bootstrapped from the ground up. So I also feel a little bit of a connection because we both came from Buffalo, New York originally. So a little bit of an extra tie-in there. So with Andy Paykoff Sr., the roots of Niagara bottled water began in Irvine, California in 1963, where Mr. Paykoff bootstrapped his business bottling high-quality, low-cost drinking water in 5-gallon glass containers. As the reputation of Niagara steadily grew, so did the business, eventually moving into the single-serve private-labeled bottling market. Today, Niagara is one of the largest private label bottlers in the United States, producing waters for companies such as Costco, Safeway, Inc., and Walmart. Despite its industry-leading position, Niagara has remained a family-owned business and operated company, and in 2002, Mr. Paykoff Sr. appointed his son Andy Paykoff Jr. as CEO. This company has continued to experience massive growth and is currently the largest privately owned labeled bottler in the Western Hemisphere. Andy, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please take it away.
Hi. Thanks for that pretty impressive introduction. I don't know if all that's justified, but it is what it is. I think what I'd like to do is just say a little bit about the way my life unfolded. And then maybe we can do a question and answer, because it wasn't rocket science. It was just kind of step by step. So I was born in Buffalo, New York. My parents are immigrants. I was born and raised in an upstairs flat. And
Hey, Andy, if you wouldn't mind, just so we can see you, you're a little bit out of frame. Could you move the camera down or sit back a little bit? I just want to, yeah, perfect, great. Want to make sure everyone's able to see you. That'll do.
Alrighty. So basically, we grew up in the ghetto. And my parents are immigrants, are hardworking. We were poor. We didn't eat American food, but we had plenty of food to eat, and it was tasty. But it wasn't typical American stuff. I always did well in school, and I did 1 year at the University of Buffalo and finished that, and I was still only 16 years old. But I didn't continue because I could no longer afford the tuition. I ran out of money, so I went to work. I went to work, and I always saved. My dad said, any fool can make money, but it takes a smart man to save it. He also said, you got to work. And I remember those two things. I guess he had the old country way of teaching you, and he kept on saying it until you got sick of hearing it, but it did stick with you. So when I was 18, I started tending bar in my dad's bar and continued in that line of work for almost 5 years. In the middle of that time, when I was 21, I went into a bar business with my big brother. And we learned that we could only make $80 a week. And that was all there was. We couldn't make any more. And we worked 70 hours a week behind the bar. And it was $80 a week. So we looked for opportunities elsewhere. Now that took me to California. I moved to California when I was not quite 23 years old. I was still 22. And I got a job as a milkman, delivering milk to stores. And I was surprised at how much money people made. It was $129.50 a week for only 40 hours of work. And of course, you got overtime on top of that. Because I was not a graduate, I had no chance for advancement. I had a lot of free time and I was restless. So I had an opportunity when I was almost 24 years old to get a job as a store-to-store waterman that made more money. And I took it. I bought a used truck and fixed it, and that's what I did. And I did that for maybe 6 months, 9 months, and then I got into a problem. The supervisor and the owner called me into the office one day and wanted to know why I was delivering so much water. And they were afraid that that was going to create them problems with their customers, so they restricted me to 4 truckloads a week. I was selling a truckload a day. So there goes my future with that company. So I found a part-time job on Fridays. And then I also found eventually another water company to go to work for. So I took that other job and I failed. Then I tried to get home accounts. And that's how I started my own water business. I had very little money, no sales experience, no business building knowledge, no help. Had to work through tons of mistakes, most of which I caused. My goal was to end each day with at least one more customer than what I started with. I worked hard enough every day to grow a little bit every day. I didn't count the hours, didn't count how many days a week I worked. My objectives were simple: to improve measurably every single day. I paid myself $95 a week for the first 6 years, and that's raising a family. When I was 30 years old, things started getting better because we've been doing it now for about 6 years, and baby step by baby step every day, including up to today, still baby steps, and you try to do them in the right direction. I made too many mistakes and worked my way through each one of them. Examples: truck problems, learned to be a mechanic. I had faulty plastic oils, that's a reservoir for a 5-gallon cooler. I had rusting coolers. I learned to sand and paint coolers and trucks. I had an issue with the name Niagara with the government. We had competition issues. One competitor used discount coupons against us to try to knock us off. Another one slandered us and tainted our water. Then I had an issue with the power company. They wanted us to move our building because they had a right of way. Nonsensical, but those are the type of problems. We had a lot of work ethic. One example of work ethic, we bought a US surplus trailer mounted water purification system located in San Antonio, Texas. I had a pintle hook hitch put on my car, and after completing Friday deliveries to my customers, drove 2,800 miles round trip with my brother and 7-year-old son, and returned in time to service my customers Monday morning. We were always growing into unknown issues, always making progress, encountering new problems and finding solutions. I had a very bad experience in 1978 with my first and last bank loan, which was to finance real estate for a bottling plant. The all-consuming stress of making the high interest payments took all my waking thoughts and was not worth it. I promised myself to never have debt. If we couldn't afford it, we didn't need it. When you're the little guy, you're easily victimized. When you're big, the game changes. Fast forward, now I'm almost 60 years old. We're growing fast. We're up to 40% growth rate for compounded for several years. Hired my 22-year-old son, Andy, when he graduated from SMU. We needed bright young lions, I call them, to take Niagara forward, baby step by baby step. We recruited bright, eager, motivated, driven, hardworking, young people. Almost all are still with us and are having wonderful careers. Fast forward another 5 years, the company's at 30 million revenue. I had a TIA, that's a transient ischemic accident. In English, that's a stroke that you get over. I had that in a high pressure vendor meeting. My son Andy fired me and promoted me to chairman and took over. He fired me out of love, of course. Since then, the many experiences and things I've learned over the years allow me to continue to contribute to our growth, efficiencies, and innovations. Now I'm 81 years old. Niagara is the Western Hemisphere's largest volume bottled water company, the most technically advanced, the most eco-friendly, the most automated, the fastest, most energy efficient bottling lines in the world, and has created thousands of good paying jobs for Americans, and is 100% owned by my son Andy. That's about it as far as a general thing. And maybe someone would like to ask me some questions, and hopefully I can answer in a useful.
Yes, Andy, thank you so much. We definitely do. First of all, could you tilt your computer down a little bit for me so we can get more of your head? Or you're very much at the bottom of your screen right now. There.
That better?
Do that same thing one more time, and I think we're going to be golden. Perfect. Okay, great. That is outstanding. Okay. Yes. So the first question came from an anonymous. Would you advise most students to start a business? Why or why not?
Well, that's a great question. And that's not a yes or no answer. That's up to that person. You have to have the entrepreneurial spirit. You have to be willing to do whatever's necessary and not give up, because it's not going to be easy. If you want easy, get a job someplace, okay? But if you're an entrepreneur, sometimes that doesn't work for you. You've got this fire inside of you that you want to do your own thing and you want to make something out of yourself. So it goes back to that individual, is where they're coming from.
What are some more of those entrepreneurial assets that you think should be fostered to create a successful entrepreneur who would be starting a business?
I think it's pretty basic. I think you have to have strong work ethic. You have to have strong savings ethic. I think those are the two biggest things. And to describe that a little bit, work ethic means you're not talking 40 hours a week. You're talking 80, 100 hours a week, whatever it takes. And you're not going to wake up one day and be rich. It doesn't happen that way. You're going to succeed first while you're struggling. Okay? First you succeed, then you make money. But it takes you a long time to learn to succeed. So you've got to have that stick-to-itiveness. You've got to really have strong work ethic. You can't quit. You can't give up. You're going to have friends doing a lot better than you are because they've got good paying jobs, but you're taking steps in the right direction. Okay?
This comes from Melina. She says, "Hi, Mr. P. What advice would you give to a current team member at Niagara on navigating a fast-paced environment?"
Niagara does have a fast-paced environment, and it's the same advice. Just do the best you possibly can do. And that's one of the things that a lot of Niagara team members have in common. They're really motivated and hardworking people. And they want to make something out of their life. They want to have a career. They want to do something. And they're willing to work hard enough to make it happen. So the best advice is give it your best shot. Give it all you got. And when you do, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? The results will take care of themselves.
Thank you. What in a saturated market, bottled water, obviously, there's lots of people doing bottled water. From the start, what made you stand out? What really helped you grow? You did speak to that a little bit, but I mean, from then till now, in a saturated market, what really helped you to keep a leg up and have a growing, productive business?
Well, the word saturated market is kind of an interesting word. I suppose all markets are saturated on any given day, or else they would be a different size. And then if they were a different size, they'd still be saturated. What separates you is your ability to change the market, to cause that market to grow, to figure out a way to grow the market. Okay, so that doesn't happen in 10 seconds of thinking about it. It happens over years of working your best, thinking of how to improve things, thinking how to reduce costs, not just thinking about it, but actually getting the job done, reducing costs, creating value, giving people more reasons to buy your product. In our case, it was bottled water, but whatever the product, you've got to create value. And you got to have a way to separate yourself from the other guys with value and with quality, with service, all the things that people are interested in. And what makes the market grow is when all those things align. When you have affordability with quality, people are going to buy it, whatever it is. I hope that answers.
Did the business change the way you thought it would over time, or did you look back and see a totally different experience than you were anticipating?
Well, the business has been constantly evolving. When I started, the first thing I did was deliver water to stores in gallon bottles. And then the second thing I did was deliver half-gallon bottles to stores. Then the third thing was 5-gallon to home, and all of these were glass bottles. And then that evolved into plastic bottles. And that ended up evolving into what we call the grocery package, basically the half-liter bottles. And that evolved from higher prices to continually lowering prices to where it got to be very affordable and encourage people to buy it. to where now it's the lowest cost way to get water is, like they mentioned, Costco and Walmart. You can buy our products there under their names for way less than 10 cents a bottle. We're talking like 7-8 cents a bottle you can buy water for. And that's so ridiculously low priced. Of course, people are going to buy it. It's handy. It's a good product. It's better than any other beverage to drink, and it costs less. It's the best beverage at the lowest price when you talk about what's good for your body.
What do you, in that mindset, what do you think differentiates water companies? You've spoken to some things like obviously sustainability and those aspects, but from a product point, what is kind of your thought on what really differentiates?
Well, you can break a product into two different things: the actual liquid in the bottle, okay, and then you can look at everything else around it: the bottle, the cap, the package, the service, the freight, the value proposition, the overall quality, ease of use for the customer. And we've kind of blazed the trail in all those areas. We're the ones that invented the lightweight bottle. We invented the lightweight cap. We're the ones that took corrugated out of the packaging. Water used to come in cardboard boxes. Now there's no box. It went from a cardboard box to a tray to a pad to just the film only. And that keeps on reducing the cost and keeps on improving the eco-friendliness. And then we went from a cap that took 3 or 4 turns to open the bottle to a cap that opens like this, just like that, and it's open. And 120 degrees, it's open. And those are all our inventions. And that just makes it easier for the customers to use it and keeps on reducing the cost. So it's affordability, convenience, quality, eco-friendliness. Keep on pushing the bars in all those areas.
Some new questions here. We have one: what was a memorable failure and what was the lesson you learned from it?
Oh boy. I had many memorable failures. I say it this way: I wasn't smart enough to give up. Almost all businesses fail, and they don't fail because the business concept's bad. They fail because they're not willing to work enough to make it succeed, because it's a huge amount of work. Well, one example: when we were the very first day that I had a truck, that was my truck. I bought a truck. Like the first water company I went with, they had a deal. You could have either used their truck and earned 20% commission on the sales, or you could have bought your own truck and earned 30%. Well, that was 50% more, so it made sense to buy your own truck, so I did. So I bought a used truck. Well, when I got to my first customer, the transmission wouldn't shift. That's a pretty good failure. I couldn't get to the first customer, so I burned up the transmission because I didn't know that you had to check to see that there was oil inside of the transmission. So I melted the gears together. So it cost me half the price of the truck to fix that. And here, I'm not making any money yet. It's just spending. And then a couple of days later, while I was delivering water after it was all fixed, guy comes beeping the horn and says, "Hey, your wheel's falling off your truck." And it was. And I didn't know about that type of stuff, that things you were supposed to make sure your lug nuts were tight. I didn't know. But the lug nuts are the nuts that hold the wheels on. And there were 6 of them on my left rear wheel, and 5 of them had snapped off. Nobody got hurt. But those type of things would make it easier for you to say, I don't think this is for me. Then a short time after, I bought 800 of these plastic reservoirs. They call them Oyas, for where you dump the bottle of water into them and it holds the water with a faucet on it. And they were all faulty. And they had a plastic smell, a terrible plastic smell. And I paid $1.50 for them. That means $1,200. I have to back up and say, I started my business with $6,000. Okay, 1,200 of it went for those plastic oils. So I set up a brand new customer. She called me up before I even got home at the end of the day and said that she wanted to cancel the service because she didn't like the way it tasted. I went right back out to her home and asked her for a glass and tasted it, and I spit it out. It was terrible. And it was the oil. It was just made the water taste horrible. Okay? Well, you can't keep customers if your water's terrible. I took those oils back to the manufacturer and I said, smell that. And he took the oil, went, smells fine. Yeah. They gave me 25 cents back for each one of them. So I gave him $1.50. He gave me back 25 cents times 800. That was about 25% or 20% of my total assets at that time because I trusted him. And you got to know who you're going to trust. You can't not trust everybody. Some people are trustworthy, some are not.
Expound on that. Tell me a little bit about that. How as people starting out or just growing their businesses, what do you use as a marker for how to gauge good people and good relationships?
Well, most people are good people. Okay. What, 90%, 95%, 98% of the people that you're ever going to meet, they're really good people. Okay. That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to make a profit just because you're working with good people. You still have to offer a value. You have to give people something they want. You got to satisfy their need. And in our case, everybody drinks water. God made us to drink water, so that part's a no-brainer. But then the challenge was, how do you make it affordable? How do you make it taste good? How do you give good service? How do you have a package that the people will want to buy again and again? Okay, so it's yes, you're going to be dealing with good people, but don't take your eye off what's really the method to success, and that is giving the people what they want. I hope that answered that.
It does. Tell me a little bit more about, obviously you guys have a super forward-thinking bottle and production facility, and so being forward-thinking is obviously very important to you and your business. How did you decide on what resources to allocate and really how much emphasis to give to that what's next?
That's a great question. And you know what? It's been baby steps all along. And it's not like you have this great big vision one day and you say, hey, I've just invented sliced bread. It's not like that. It's like, for example, there were certain key points in the business. Like when we started selling water to stores, that when we were in our own business, we were selling gallon bottles. There were these gallon milk bottles, you know, the plastic, the cloudy milk bottles. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah, well, we were buying those from the manufacturers that were selling bottles, and we were filling them, and we were doing fine. Okay, but every time there was like an earthquake or a flood, you know, a big rainstorm or a war scare or something, the vendors could never supply us bottles. They always made the same excuse that their machine broke. Well, what that really meant was we were the small player and they were taking care of their big customers because there was a demand for bottles. Okay, so we made a decision that the next time, after that happened a few times, that the next time they did that, we were going to go buy a blow molder and make our own bottles. Well, we didn't know a thing about that. And that's a completely different business, right? Making bottles. But we figured if we were going to grow, we didn't have a choice. So it happened again with I remember the exact date. It was January 17th. In 1994, there was this big earthquake in California, and they stopped giving us bottles again. And the 18th, I signed a deal with a blow mold manufacturer to sell us a gallon blow molder. Then that was necessity was the mother of invention there, right? We didn't have this great big epiphany as, oh boy, we just invented sliced bread. We had to do something if we wanted to keep on growing. So what we learned was that we could make a bottle for about half the price of what we were buying them for. So that made us even more competitive. We were able to reduce our costs to our customers even more, which increased our volume even more. And then we ended up buying more blow molders. The next year we bought another one, and the following year we bought another one. And as the business kept growing. So we also found out, it's all, again now, the little baby step, that was a big step, but then there were baby steps that happened off of that. Like, now you're making your own bottles, now you got to make a decision as to how much gram weight do you want that bottle to weigh. So you think about that for a while and you say, well, the guys that we were buying bottles from had to make a bottle strong enough to transport it to us empty without getting all dented up. So if we're going to make the bottle and we're going to fill it right away, we don't have those transportation issues. So we could take a little bit of weight off of that bottle and we can save it even a little bit more money. So you see how that's a little baby step that follows? And those type of baby steps are what, over the years, there's so many of them that happen that help separate you from your competitors in a positive way.
There's so many more questions I want to ask. I thought that was super insightful. I wish we had the time. Sadly, I'm going to close with this question. I don't even get to ask several that are on here. But looking back, would you do it again, or would you have taken that job you referenced?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I always wanted to work for myself. Okay. I had no clue that the company was going to get so huge. I mean, it's the largest company in the Western Hemisphere. Maybe in the world, we don't know. But it's just what happens when you keep on plugging away. Okay.
Andy, thank you for your authenticity. Thank you for your knowledge. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for taking the time with us.
You're welcome. Glad to have helped.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's our show. That's what we're doing right now. I would really like to thank you for being a part of this. This has been a group effort from all of us, and I'm just so thankful that we got to come together and do this. I heard a joke recently, and a man stumbles into the optometrist office and he says, "Doc, I really need some help. I'm having an issue. Every time I open my eyes, everything I see is terrible, and I really think I need some glasses." And the optometrist says, "Oh no, I've been getting this a lot recently. You're perfectly fine. You have 20/20 vision." And you know, I think that's dead on. 2020 has been a really profound year in many capacities for all of us. So thank you for taking the time, and I really hope that our session here today helped to give you some clarity and help to give you some of that vision and to know where you want to go next. So thank you for being a part of this community, and thank you for taking the time to choose to rise yourself up, because this is how we create the change. It all starts with the man in the mirror. So yeah, that's important. Thank you. I would like to thank our sponsors: California Community Colleges, Vital Link OC, OC Engine, Learning Fuse, SEO EQ, Hassan Archer Consulting, and ProPresence. I would also really like to thank all of our amazing speakers and panelists. There were some really insightful thoughts there, and people took time out of their busy days to support and help. So a genuine, authentic thank you to all of you for doing that as well. Also, I would like to thank all the team that did this: Matt and Andy Zimmer, Tristen Tucker, Hassan Archer, and I did this too, so me. And they were a great team, and they put this together well. I think there will be more editions of this, so check back. I think our next one's probably going to be in the fall, maybe September. So definitely keep an eye on OC the number 4, and .biz. And that's the website. We'll be keeping you informed on there. And if you do have any questions, or maybe you want to get an additional deck, you want to get one of the contacts of one of our speakers, feel free to email us directly at oc4biz@pro-presence.com. Besides that, I hope you have a beautiful day. It's going to be a great weekend. Let's go make the world the place we want it to be. Let's do it together. We got this. So I'm wishing you well, and let's be good to each other. Thank you for being a part of OC Open for Biz, and I'll see you the next time.